Hess breaks his bat. Kirkring got to find it. Throws to the plate. Oh, my goodness. He throws it away. And the Dodgers have won.
Yeah, I watched the football last night, but man, was that a playoff baseball game last night. The Dodgers on just an absolutely horrific play for the pitcher, the relief pitcher, Orion Kirkering, in for the Philadelphia Phillies. 2 out, bases loaded, and a ground ball back to him. He sort of botched it, but still had plenty of time if he had shown some calm to pick it up and throw to first, as his catcher was indicating, throw it to first. Instead, he went home where he had no shot to get the runner, even in a force situation, and the throw was, to say the least, errant, and the Phillies season comes to an end. The Dodgers move on. That's one of those moments in sports where I don't care. Actually, I do care, and I certainly recognize that if you are not a Phillies fan because you think there's this rivalry between the Nats and Phillies, I don't really see it that way, and I guarantee you Phillies fans don't see it that way, and you are rooting for anything to happen badly to the Phillies, or you don't like Harper, or you don't like Turner, ending up there, or you don't even like Schwarber ending up there. But that is one of those moments where if there's an empathetic bone in your body, a sympathetic bone in your body, Orion Kirkering, the pitcher, who completely panicked and cost his team a chance to extend its season, or at least extend the series by another game. Heartbreaking moment last night in sports, and the drama of the pitch by pitch in an extra inning playoff game where one team, it's even better when both teams are on the verge of going home. But I really think it's way up there in sports. It's way up there with NHL playoff overtime hockey, where, at any moment it can end. And it's the same thing in baseball. When you get to that moment, the next pitch, it can be over, unless it's the top of the inning. But even then, it'll feel like if it's over. I'll tell you the big three. Harper, who's been one of the most clutch performers in sports over the last 5 to 6 years, came up super small in this series, as did Trey Turner and Schwarber, except for one game, the game they won. They're out. This was the pitcher, Orion Kirkering, who had done a really good job until he didn't.
Shit off my foot. Just kind of, once that pressure got to me, I just thought it was a faster throw to JT, a little quicker throw than trying to cross body at the Bryce. So just a more shit throw.
Yeah. Did you hear them telling you to go to first at all, or were you just in the moment? It wasn't even
just in the moment.
Yeah.
Can you see JT pointing in that moment, or is it just kind of looking up?
Just kind of looking up, just be ready to go.
I mean, a lot of guys in there, but you was one of the first ones there. Just what the guys say to you in that moment?
Just keep your head up. It's honest mistake. It's baseball. Shit happens, and just keep your head up. You'll be good for a long time to come. It's not my fault. Just that opportunity to score.
Anyway, we'll dump out of that. That was Orion Kirkering, the pitcher, kind of there to take all the questions, and they kept coming for a while. Good for him, but that is going to be tough to live down. Hopefully he gets another opportunity, because that's one of those that'll be replayed. And with that fan base, they're pretty relentless. Tough night, by the way, for Philly fan. That does not make my heart break overall. That is one of those nights where you can say, well, yeah, we're 4-1 in football, the defending champs, and we're in the second round of the Major League Baseball playoffs. Where are your teams? It's still a bad night. The Phillies ousted, and then the Giants trying to bounce back last night. The Eagles trying to bounce back last night, in New York, in the Meadowlands, against the Giants, and it didn't go well.
Her throws, intercepted, picked off all the way down the sideline. Cardale Flott inside the 30, out of bounds, deep in Eagles territory.
that was pretty much it. The Eagles were down 27-17 in that moment early in the fourth quarter, and Jalen Hurts threw the first pick he's thrown in like 320 passes, but it was a bad throw to the inside shoulder, not the outside shoulder. A.J. Brown versus zero coverage blitz is coming wide open. He not only throws to the wrong guy, and that wrong guy was Jahan Dotson in the moment. He makes a bad throw. Game over. The Giants run the Eagles the rest of the way, 34-17. Philadelphia's gone from 4-0 with question marks to now 4-2 with a lot more. I'm an idiot. I mean, I sat here for 2 days and called the Giants plus the points and said, I think they can win the game outright. I played them, obviously, plus the points. I did not play them on the money line. I don't know what I was thinking, Max, because to win this game this week.
So many times.
I didn't play them on the money line. And what's worse is I played them plus the 7.5, but then I played the under, which basically was over almost at halftime.
Instantaneously.
Yeah, so I lost juice last night on a night where I felt like I had pretty good clarity on the winning team, or certainly the covering team. Look, the big question for us is, what is the landscape now of the division? What does it look like to all of us? But let's talk briefly about the Philadelphia Eagles. They're in a world of hurt right now. They've been here before, okay, just so everybody understands. Last year, they were 2-2. Now, they had a lot of injuries last year. And last night, by the way, no Jalen Carter. And Lane Johnson played, but played hurt. They've been banged up a little bit here recently. But last year, if you recall, they were 2-2, and they beat the Cleveland Browns at home in Week 5 in a game in which Sirianni started jawing with fans, and they got booed at the end of the game because it was such a hideous game to go to 3-2. And then they started to get it together. And then all of a sudden, like a month later, they had the best defense in football, and Saquon Barkley was running through everybody. And, you know, it was then an onslaught the rest of the way, with one exception, of course, the game here in late December that they ended up losing. But they look like they're in trouble. Now, in 2023, they also looked like they were in trouble early in the season. Not early in the season, but when they got to 10-1, and then they fell apart. So they fell apart in 2023, never got it together, mostly because they actually weren't very good defensively. And then last year they got it together because they were good defensively, and then they became really good offensively with Saquon Barkley leading the way. What will be the result this year at 4-2 and struggling? Now, they do have Minnesota on the road next week after this kind of mini bye after a Thursday night game, and then they get a rematch with the Giants the following week before a bye week. It's very possible in 2 weeks. You know, they've won 2 in a row to get to 6-2, and they've got a bye week, and they're getting healthier, and it's like, all right, here they come. I think, though, right now, and we talked about this the other day, it was my sell on our buy and sell segment. I said, I'm selling the Eagles right now as a team that's going to struggle in the short and medium term part of this season. Now, I don't know what the end of the season is going to look like, because they're certainly capable. I mean, to count them out, I think, is ridiculous. But the problems they have compared to last year's team, number one, if they're not healthy, they're not anywhere near what they were last year defensively at the end of the season, which really was one of the better defensive football teams we've seen in a long time at the end of last year. They're clearly not the same in their offensive line. And Saquon Barkley's results are showing it. Now, I thought last night, I don't know why they got away from the run. Saquon Barkley had 56 yards on 7 carries at halftime, or 8 carries at halftime. And in the second half, he ended up with 4 carries for 2 yards. That is giving up on the run. And I don't know why they gave up on the run. Now, I certainly understand at the very end of the game why they're giving up on the run, down 34-17. But they actually seemed to have something going last night. And that was their identity offensively last year. They don't have an identity this year. They can't run the football, and they can't throw it. And here come the questions about Jalen Hurts again. What is Jalen Hurts? How many times have we talked about Jalen Hurts? Like, he has been disrespected in a major way when he's played great. And then for some reason, when he hasn't been great, people have come to his defense. Are they going to do that this time? I don't know. He missed a deep throw to Devontae Smith on their first drive of the third quarter when they were down 20-17. And it should have been a touchdown, and he overthrew him by 2 or 3 yards at the very least. On the pick at 27-17, everybody was pointing out after the game, the former quarterbacks, no, it's zero blitz. Here they come. You've got your best receiver in man coverage with the middle of the field wide open, and he wins easily. What are you doing? Throwing an out to Jahan Dotson. So the decision-making in the passing game, maybe the play calling, a lot of the execution, no run game at this point, some internal stuff, which they had last year. They had that last year at 2-2. You know, a lot of talk about Sirianni. He's in trouble. Will he actually make it to the bye week? That was the talk last year. The NFL, we know, changes week to week. But right now, the Eagles have lost 2 in a row. They didn't look that good getting to 4-0. And the NFC East appears to be very much in play. Here is essentially the average of 3 sports books, all right, that I took from this morning on the NFC East updated current odds. Philadelphia is still the favorite to win the division, but barely. They're at minus 118 on average. Washington's at plus 165. So Philly is still the favorite, but a much slighter favorite to win the division. Of course, Washington with a win Monday night is tied for first in the division. The Eagles with the Cowboys with a win Sunday in Carolina would then be a half game back at 3-2-1. And don't look now, but the Giants with a rookie quarterback and a rookie running back are developing a toughness and an identity. They can run the football. They can run the football 11 on 11 with their quarterback, and they can rush the passer. And they should, or could certainly be better at this point than 2-4. They were a 64-yard field goal away from beating Dallas in regulation in week 2. And the truth is, last week against the Saints, even though the Saints won and they covered the 2.5, it was 5 turnovers that did them in. They were with maybe only 3 turnovers, they probably win that game. But you can't turn the ball over and expect to win. Now, they've got Denver on the road next week. They've got the Eagles after that, the Niners after that. But the Giants, I think we called this early in the year, they're going to be pesky. I don't know that we saw it with Dart and with Scattaboo, who, by the way, runs like, he's apparently he's nuts. There's some great quotes from his teammates, all of them saying that he's absolutely a lunatic and that he's just loud with everything. Running back meetings, team meetings, he'll just start screaming in the middle of them. He's insane, apparently. We saw it at Arizona State last year, but God, does he run hard. He runs so hard, and with his head as a lead, you wonder how sustainable it is long term. But he is a competitive, bad you-know-what. And they've got some players on defense, and they're not even healthy. Here's the biggest, if you're a Giant fan, I think the biggest, miss this year is you don't get 14 games, would it have been when Russ got benched? 14 games of a rookie quarterback with Malik Neighbors, a second-year wide receiver, for the development and the chemistry. Because Malik Neighbors, pound for pound, is the best player on the team, although Dexter Lawrence is close. Giants have some A players, man. They really do. NFC East, it seems to be in play. 301-230-0980. Who you got in the NFC East? I'll give you my answer. Max will give you his answer. We want your answer Phone lines are open. And there was one other thing about last night's game that once again, I think reinforces a major rule change coming in the offseason. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Who you got in the NFC East? 301-230-0980, 301-230-0980. This from JRob91. He wrote this the other day. Kevin, not sure why you thought Jaden was so good on Sunday. He wasn't, and you've been far too early to crown him. Look out for Caleb on Monday night. And Dak and Jalen are better NFC East QBs. Thanks for that, JRob91. No, Jaden was absolutely sensational on Sunday, per almost any evaluation after the first two series. So I'm not sure what you were watching. Look out for Caleb on Monday night. Yeah, I mean, they've had a bye week. You know, Ben Johnson's creative. I think this is going to be a ball game on Monday night. We will preview it and pick it on Monday's show, not today's Friday football show. But yeah, I mean, I think that this is going to be, a challenge. And I think Caleb's going to get better with Ben Johnson. And the story's too early on Caleb Williams. It's too early on all these guys. I agree with you. I mean, look, I think what I saw last week was not last year with Jaden was not deceiving and was not an aberration and was not 1 year wonder-esque. I think that this guy is legit and transcendent. And I think we're going to see that over the long haul of a career. I think the health, I think his body holding up is the number one, sort of concern. As far as Dak and Jalen being better NFC East quarterbacks, I don't think so. I don't agree with that at all. I think Dak's playing at a very high level. Dak's nowhere near the threat Jaden is to defenses. And Jalen, going back to last year, even after the Super Bowl, I said, if I'm a Philadelphia Eagle fan, I would swap in a heartbeat. And I like Jalen Hurts. I think Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback despite the struggles of last night and recently. Who you got in the NFC East? 301-230-0980. I mentioned basically I took three sports books, averaged them. Philly still a slight favorite at -118. Washington is second at +165. And then the Cowboys are like +600. And the Giants are still a massive long shot at somewhere around +5,000. All right. But you've got a bunched up 4-2, 3-2, 2-2-1, 2-4. Still a lot of head-to-heads. Washington and Dallas have to play twice. Washington and Philly have to play twice. Washington still has one more with the Giants. Dallas now has played, two of the three division teams. Philly has played a game against two of the three division teams as well. Long way to go. And I would just also say right now, I don't think the NFC East, I think the NFC East is a competitive division, but it's in a loaded conference right now with what appear to be some real good teams. Detroit, Green Bay, Tampa Bay, the Rams, the 49ers, and, don't discount teams like Seattle, Atlanta, Chicago, Minnesota, the Cowboys and the Giants in our division. I was thinking about this, and we may have mentioned it yesterday when we were talking about when we were doing our power rankings, Max, is that, anybody watching football through, say, the first 4 weeks would have easily identified the Giants, the Panthers, and the Saints as the three worst NFC teams. And they've all now won their most recent games. And they don't look to be terrible. I mean, they might be again after this week. We'll see. I got Washington winning the NFC East. It's real simple. They've got the best quarterback in the division. And he is a massive difference maker in their team. And I think with Philadelphia struggling, it's going to create an opportunity. I think, Washington, it may not end up being the best team in the NFC when all is said and done. And I'm not suggesting they're going to end up being a 1 seed or even a 2 seed. I think the Lions look really good. I think the Bucks are good. I still think the Rams are good, even though they lost to the 49ers last Thursday night at home. But I like Washington to win the NFC East. I'm taking the best quarterback in the division. The Cowboys are flawed significantly on defense. The Giants, you're not going to do it with a rookie quarterback. And by the way, with the injuries they've had, and one of them, a major player, and they're not getting back this year, and Malik Neighbors, I can't discount or dismiss or eliminate the possibility of Philadelphia getting it together. They certainly have the talent to do it, but I'm going to take Jaden Daniels leading this team to somewhere around 10, 11 wins, and that being good enough to win what will be a bunched up NFC East when all is said and done, with some big division games. A big one a week from Sunday in Dallas between Washington and Dallas. Obviously, two biggies between Philly and Washington at the end of the year. Some big games coming up. The schedules are interesting. The Giants, if you think they can get back into it, they got the Broncos and the Eagles on the road, and then the 49ers. They still have to play the Packers, Lions, Patriots at this point, which looks daunting, and another game against the Cowboys at the end of the year. But the other NFC East teams are kind of in the same boat because they all have the same schedule with the exception of 3 games. Max, who do you got winning the NFC East?
I mean, how could I not pick the best quarterback and the defense that seems to be outperforming despite their secondary issues? I'm going to go with Washington, and it's all going to come down to that final 4-game stretch. I believe it will be Giants, Philly, Dallas, and then Philly again to close out the year. It's all going to come down to those 4 games for Washington, but I have great confidence that they will be able to win those as long as they're still healthy and kicking. So yeah, I'm going to pick the hometown team to win the NFC East.
I kind of have I've always had this, and for a long time now, this, weird, kind of vision and dream, really a dream, a hope that a late season Dallas-Washington game with high stakes. It's just been so long.
Christmas can
we
be
had
fun,
it
Kev.
back in 2012. And for some of us, that's what we grew up with every year. I mean, both games being massive, and many times at the end of the year, massive high stakes division games against the Cowboys. Can you imagine? I don't want Dallas to do too well, but can you imagine if the game of the year turned out to be the Christmas Day game in Landover between the Cowboys and the Skins? That would be fun. I like Washington to win this division. I think Philadelphia's struggles here are going to put them behind the 8 ball. By the way, I think any result with Philadelphia at this point is possible, including missing the postseason altogether. I would not bet that, but I think they're in a heap of trouble right now. And I'll tell you what, their next 2 games, because of what follows, they got to go after this mini bye week. They got to go to Minnesota next week and win against maybe their former quarterback, Carson Wentz. And then they've got to take care of the Giants at home before they go into their bye week, because they come out of it at Green Bay, Detroit at home, at Dallas. 301-230-0980. Who you got in the NFC East? Max and I both have Washington winning the division. Gary in Upper Marlboro. Gary, go ahead. Gary, let's go to Gary.
Hi, can you hear me?
I got you, Gary.
Good morning. I'm waffling a bit. I'm leaning towards Washington, but I think it's going to come down between Washington and Dallas. What people don't realize about Dallas is that defense has been so bad. They've been playing the majority of the year down 3 of their top 4 corners. They haven't had their top corners playing on the field. I think yesterday or the other day was the first time that they had them relatively healthy. They've had guys out there from the practice squad playing. And so they played all together a little bit on Sunday, and the defense played a little bit better. But they could easily be 5-1 right now. They should have beat Philadelphia the first night. And that game that they had, they only have 2 losses. So they could easily be 5-1, and they should have beaten Green Bay. So I'm leaning towards Washington right now, but that game next week in a couple weeks, I think, is going to determine who's going to win the NFC East. I don't believe in Philadelphia.
Well, it's just the first of their 2 head-to-head. I'll tell you what, if you're a believer in Dallas, then they need to go to Carolina this Sunday and beat a team that actually is a bit feisty. The Panthers are, and they got to beat Carolina because they're better than Carolina, not by a lot, talent-wise I'm talking about, but they got to go hang 30-something on Carolina like they did against the Jets and come out of there with a win, because that's a trap kind of a game Sunday, no doubt. That feels like a trap game, like the Jet game did last week. I'll concede. I gave out the Jets as a play, and I'm going to give out Carolina as a play when we get to my smell test. But if they go to Carolina and win, and they're taking care of the teams that on paper they should beat, and it's tough to say that with any game because they got a bunch of should beats on their schedule. They got the Cardinals, they got the Raiders. They got a game, they still have another game. I don't know even want to say it with the Giants. And then it'll come down to the division games. They have the Chiefs and the Lions, but look, Dallas, in this league up here, as Coach Joe used to say, if you can score 37 plus a game, you're going to have a chance to win a lot of games. You almost have to become opportunistic a little bit defensively, which they were last week. See if they can continue it this week at Carolina. Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it. Let's go to Johnny in Chicago. Johnny, who you got in the NFC East?
What's up, Kevin? Washington 11-6, but they have to keep their quarterback healthy. They got to keep our quarterback healthy. With him, we can win any game. We're not out of any game, Kevin. You know that. With this dude, we can win some games. And one more thing, Kevin. Monday night.
I'm listening.
No, we're not going to talk about the Bears until Monday, but this is if Washington could win this game, Kevin, this would be huge because if they lose, they'll be 1-2. What 1-2 in the conference, Kevin? 1-3. I mean, we're 1-3 in the conference, right?
Right. Yeah, they're two of their 3 wins are against AFC teams, right?
Exactly. The Bears, they stink on defense, Kevin. They stink. If we could run a football, Kevin, we should be able to win this game, Kevin. It's not going to be easy. It's not they're going to win. They have to win this game, Kevin. You don't want to go 1-3 in the conference because then you're going to have Atlanta over you and the Bears over you for a tiebreaker. They have to win this game, Kevin. They have to, Kevin. All right, Kevin. I know you got calls.
All right, Johnny. I got you, Johnny. I do. Thanks for the call. Okay. And look, we've been talking about the Bears all week, and we'll talk about them today too. I'm just saying that our keys and our prediction will come on Monday's show. I think Monday night's going to be a ball game. It's going to be a ball game. The Bears off the bye week. They got 2 wins in a row. Ben Johnson's creative. This is our defense secondary wise is still, if we're going to say it nicely, a work in progress, but there's a lot of progress that needs to be made coverage wise. This could be a game. There is some weather as a possibility. There's going to be a nor'easter, and there's still some questions as to whether or not we get it in the D.C. area or it stays east. But Sunday night, Monday could be a lot of wind and a lot of rain. Now, it looks like it would be out of here by Monday night, but just something to keep an eye on over the weekend. Joe in Springfield, who you got in the NFC East?
Morning, Kevin. Shout out to Max as well.
Yep.
I'm going to say Washington, but Kevin, I'm going to be honest. I have a feeling that the wins at the end of the season, it could either be a 10 or 11 to win the division, but only maybe make the playoffs because with the NFC as stacked as it is right now, 10 wins or 9 wins could not even get you in the playoffs. I mean, that's how stacked the NFC is right now.
Yeah, so the division may be the route to get in for sure. I mean, we got a long way to go on this. Long way to go.
I will say this as well, though, Kevin. I mean, going back to what's about Philadelphia, they could easily either be 4-2, 3-3, 2-5, or 1-5 because if not for losing to Dallas, if Sheehan doesn't drop that pass, or if Travis Kelce doesn't drop a pass, it turns into an interception, or if the Rams don't get their field goal blocked, Philly's only have 1 win.
No doubt.
They're lucky.
No doubt.
Right
they could conceivably be 0-6 right now. Those 4 games they won were completely, losable in the same. But they have the ability in these close games to get it done. They didn't get it done against Denver. And last night was not an opportunity to win for the first time. Philadelphia could go a number of ways, but what's still possible is that they could figure it out and be great by the end of the year. They have a lot of talent and they have a lot of championship pedigree. So I'm not counting them out. Joe, you'll know this and you'll remember this. I was thinking about this Philadelphia team, comparing it to Washington in '92. Washington in 92, after being that dominant 91 team and the champion, they came back and everything was just off. Now, it started with a contract holdout.
Kevin, get into the playoffs that year. We got lucky getting in 9-7.
They backdoored their way in. They backdoored their way in. Right. They needed Green Bay they needed Minnesota to beat the Packers to keep the Packers out of what would have been the first Brett Favre playoff season. But they fought. But at the end of the year, they were playing better. Like, they beat Dallas, they nearly beat Philadelphia at the Vet, and then they won a playoff game. And they were very close. I mean, a fumbled, handoff exchange between Rippon and B. Mitch away from going to the NFC Championship game. But they never, during the regular season that year, they never looked anything like they looked the year before. Part of it was Rippon held out, remember, for the big contract, and they just had a bad, wacky summer. They had injuries, and a lot of S happened to them. And this Philadelphia team reminds me of that team. They're just
Kevin,
not in sync at all. But it's not over for them.
I'll let you go.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Kevin.
Yeah.
Do you think, going back to that 92 season, that if we had not fumbled the ball there and gone back to playing Dallas in the NFC Championship game, would we have beaten Dallas? Because we had momentum, for sure, not for that fumble.
I'm telling you, it is, it's one of the – I think that particular team, if you go back to that team just had an incredible championship, overall personality. The struggles during the regular season and then the fight to get into the postseason and the way they played down the stretch, the games they lost, they could have easily won, but they destroyed Minnesota on the road in the wild card round. And then, they had the 49ers on the ropes, and the 49ers were the 1 seed, remember, and would they have beaten Dallas? They would have played that game in Texas Stadium. Dallas was the division winner. Washington was a wild card team. I would say not. I think that Cowboy team was ascending, and they would have had major sort of revenge after the way they lost that regular season game at RFK late in the season with the Aikman, Emmett fumble in the end zone and Danny Copeland scoring. So, that would have been interesting, and it would have been their third, championship game against each other, but the first in Dallas, and it was very close to happening. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Stevie Ray in Baltimore. Who do you have in the NFC East?
Before I get to that, I have been wanting to call in and ask you a question. And it has to do with Steve Suter. Where did you find him? What did you go into the phone book under great analysis?
He's good.
Well, how did you find this guy? I want to tell you, I'm sitting there in my car, I'm driving, and I'm thinking, hey, Cooley's back. I was like, hey, because I didn't know who he was. And he's like somebody said yesterday, you'd said, he sounds like him, but his analysis is a little bit more in depth to me than Cooley, just a little bit. I love Cooley. Whatever he's doing, I'm glad he's there. I'm glad he's enjoying his life. Okay, so where did you find this guy?
So real quickly, the baseball coach at Maryland is a guy by the name of Matt Swope. I've known Matt forever. He's a big fan of the station, big fan of the show. And Steve, I've had on the show many times because he calls Maryland games with Johnny Holiday. So, I've had him on to preview a Terps game or to talk about Terps football. And he was always excellent as a guest. I mean, really good. And Matt, the baseball coach at Maryland, said, this guy's so good at analyzing football, you ought to try him out in Cooley's role if Cooley's not going to do it this year. And so we gave it a shot, and he is excellent. There's no doubt. He really is. All right, who do you got?
In the words, I got the Commanders, no doubt. Whoever that idiot who was talking about Jaden and saying he wasn't all that good on Saturday should listen to what Suter said about him yesterday. What did he say? He said he gave him the best grade.
Yeah.
Well,
PFF, even if you don't believe in PFF, they had him as the highest graded player in the game.
Absolutely. And if you've got the best quarterback, that's what you got to have in order to be able to do it. And we got it. So everything else will start falling into place. Okay? That's where I am.
Thanks, Stevie.
Take care, buddy.
Appreciate it. Everybody in hold, stay there. Who you got winning the NFC East? The Eagles are in a bit of a mid-season or approaching mid-season free fall. But Dallas is coming on. And look, the Giants can run the football not just with Scattaboo, but with their quarterback as well. They destroyed Philadelphia. Let's face it, no one had 20-17 at halftime. That was the biggest concern I had, although I did like the Giants. Smell test picks coming up later on in the show. Stay on hold. More. We are going to talk Bears. We're going to talk Bears with Kevin Fishbane. He covers the Bears for The Athletic at 11 a.m. Ben will join us at 12. No pressers today from coaches or anything to discuss. This is a quiet day because they're playing on Monday Night Football, so there will be some sound, I would assume, tomorrow. Let's go to our guy, Aveen. Aveen, who do you got winning the division, the NFC East?
Hey, Kevin, this whole offseason, we were talking about whether there's this big gap or there is this big gap between Washington and Philly, and that Washington closed the gap.
Right.
And this whole time I've been saying, the way Philly won last year was not common. And they towed a fine line where they won with the most dominant defense in football.
Yep.
And they won by having an extraordinary high rate of explosive runs, like a crazy high rate of explosive runs in a historic season from Saquon Barkley. And that really masks what the problems that they've had since like the 23 season with their passing game. And it's been this shaky, inconsistent offense that goes through lulls because the quarterback's limited. So I just never felt
because
like
the quarterback, what did you say? Because the quarterback's what?
Limited in how he
I
plays.
think that's a conversation that's, a standalone conversation, but continue.
Yeah, you through the eye test, through everything you see, like Jalen Hurts is in year 6 as a quarterback, and he still hasn't developed into a drop back pocket passer. And those guys don't last long. And, it's something I always felt like, why this is like two ships passing the night. Like Jalen Hurts is declining, and we have the ascending quarterback with a great offense coordinator. So I just think this is what happens now, what the Eagles offense looks like when Saquon Barkley isn't having an explosive play rate at a crazy high level. And so that's the Eagles offense. It's underwhelming. I think they're going to be having discussions about quarterback this whole year. And we have an ascendant star quarterback. We have an awesome offensive coordinator. We run the ball better than anybody this year with the additions to the O-line and some improvements at running back. Like, we are right in this for the division. I know the Eagles are still talented. They still find ways to pull things, out of their behind and get crazy wins. But the way they were winning this season wasn't sustainable. I mean, they're like dead last in offense and second half offense.
I know.
They have one of the worst third round rates. Jalen Hurts is 6 for 28 in his last 3 games on third down. Like, they have serious problems. So, and we have an.
They have serious problems. They do, and that's why we're asking the question today. I just think I think that there's so many problems right now, but I've also seen this, and you have too. Last year, now the year before that, it didn't happen. They never got it together after 10-1. They fell apart, and that, by the way, remember, was mostly because of their defense. But the only thing with Jalen Hurts, I think he's one of the hardest conversations we have as NFL fans, because all he does is win, and then all he does is whatever's required in the biggest games. And that means sometimes actually being very good and effective as a drop back quarterback. He's done that before when it's been required. I mean, we've seen it in the Super Bowl a couple of times. We saw it. Remember that game last year when Pittsburgh basically took everything away, and then he threw for 300 in that game and beat him. So, yeah, I think it's just he's such an interesting player to evaluate, and a hard player to evaluate, because there are games where you watch him and you're like, he can't drop back and throw. He can't do it. And then there are other games when they really need it, and he does it. So, yeah. All right, you got Washington. Let's go to Anthony in D.C. Anthony, go ahead.
Morning, Kevin.
What's up?
I'm cautiously optimistic about us winning the division, but in my opinion, it's all going to come down to the defense. How much are they going to bend and then break is going to be the deciding factor. If we can get an improvement on the way they played last year, I believe we have a good chance. But if we get the same results as last year or worse, it's not going to happen, in my opinion.
I would say, how about considering this for a moment, Anthony? If the defense continues to have issues, let's just say it's more secondary this year. Last year was more against the run. This year, more against the pass. Is it possible that they win the division, but let's just say with 10 wins and they're the 3 or 4 seed and they're just better teams, Detroit, Tampa, Rams, whatever it is, in the NFC, and they don't go to the Super Bowl? But I still think maybe this division could be shaping up as a division that could be won with 10 games, 10 wins, 11, maybe.
It's possible, but the problem is you can't rely on Jayden to win a shootout every time.
I know.
That's the problem.
But we almost did last year, except for the one game that he didn't.
Almost.
Yeah.
Hey, before I go,
hear you.
can I be uncoachable for 1 second?
Yeah.
All right. So I always wanted to ask you this. Do you have a specifically NFL GOAT talk? Do you have a line of demarcation when it comes to NFL GOATs?
What do you mean? I don't know. Understand what you're saying.
So a lot of people claim that Brady is the greatest QB of all time. A lot of people claim Jerry Rice is the greatest QB of all time.
Wide receiver.
Okay. Right. So in my opinion, well, I question that. In my opinion, I think it's Joe Montana as the quarterback. And what's to say that Jerry Rice is really better than, say, Paul Warfield or Jerry Rice? And the issue is, because of the rule changes along the way, where's the standard set at?
Yes, there's complications with all of these things. I mean, going back to Paul Warfield, the Dolphins ran the ball 40 times a game, and Greasy only threw it 15 times a game. I mean, it's just...
I know there's no hard and fast criteria. I understand that.
Yeah. I think it just goes to, what did you see with your own eyes? I mean, to me, I always felt, honestly, like Elway was the greatest quarterback I had ever watched. And Marino was the best passer I ever watched. But Brady did it in so many different ways and won with his brain, maybe at a higher level than any player ever. And so Brady now is my number one. I just think the way he did it and the way he did it in so many different ways. But, man, for years you could not get me off Elway. Could not get me off Elway in terms of what my eyes watched during his era. We'll do this another time. Thanks, Anthony. All of you on hold. Hey, are we doing Kevin next? All right, so here's what we can do. We're going to talk to Kevin Fishbane about the Bears next, but we can come back to this right afterwards at 11:20, 11:25 and continue with it. I'm not asking all of you to stay on hold, and I'm sorry I didn't get to you, but if you want to call back at 11:25, who you got in the NFC East, I want to hear. And I put a poll up, too, at Kevin Sheehan, DC, and the early results, pretty hometown friendly. Washington, the pick by miles. But I do want to hear some of the conversation around it. So we'll come back to this in about 20 minutes. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com. Monday night, not the only game Monday night, Buffalo, Atlanta at 7:15, and then Washington, Chicago at 8:15 with Buck and Aikman on the call. As I mentioned, weather could be a factor. Major nor'easter for us on Sunday into Monday. But the way it appears now, it should be out of here, but there could be wind, and that could still be a factor Monday night in the game. The Bears are coming in off a bye week and 2 wins in a row. They're sitting there at 2-2. Washington, obviously, off the big win over the Chargers last week. And this sets up to be a good one, not to mention the fact that there is, a lot of other as it relates to this game, going back to not only the Hail Mary, but the fact that the 2 quarterbacks in the game were 1-2 in 2024. Joining me right now is Kevin Fishbane. Kevin covers the Bears for The Athletic. You can follow Kevin on X, on Twitter, at KFishBAIN. So let me start with just this idea, and I've gotten this from some fans. I don't see it this way, and I don't feel it this way at all. But do you feel some sort of like rivalry developing between these two teams or not?
Yeah, it's a storyline rivalry a little bit when you think about the quarterbacks and Caleb Williams being from the area out there. And it's a unique setup. I was going through the head-to-head that they've played each other. This is the 5th year in a row or 4th year in a row, which is unusual for non-division teams. Now, part of that is because the Bears in Washington finished last a couple times, so they met up in that way. But I mean, look, you can go old school, right? I mean, they played during the postseason 6 times.
Yeah.
Going back.
Well, and now you're going really old school if we're going 6 times. Yes.
Yeah, 7 times even. You go all the way back to the 40s. They played each other. It seems like every year. So, I don't know. For people in Chicago, when you say the word rivalry, they will scoff at anything that is not Green Bay. They won't even maybe even consider Detroit or Minnesota rivalry. But when it comes to teams not in the division, I think there are just an abundance of storylines when you talk about these two teams. I mean, shoot, you could talk about the Bears almost hired Dan Quinn. The Bears almost hired Cliff Kingsbury. And then you put that all together, what happened last year with the 2 quarterbacks. And it's a fun matchup with a lot of narratives.
Yeah, look, I mean, Chicago has real rivals because of their length of time in the NFL and their length of time in the division that they're in. And so does Washington. I mean, it's Dallas, it's Philly, and the Giants. And, for us, it was forever the Cowboys #1 overall. I just think it's an interesting thing that I've been approached with many times this week. And I'm like, really? I can see what you described. But it's going to be more of a Bears narrative because Washington didn't have the choice. It's going to be on sort of Chicago. Did they make the right call? And my next question to you would be, isn't it as great as Jaden was last year, and there's no chance I personally would flip, that I would even consider a swap Jaden for Caleb, but isn't it just way too early given Caleb's situation last year with the staff, with the coordinator, with the changes, etc.?
Yeah, no, I think so. There are 2 ways to look at it too, because I think there are people who are of the belief that the great quarterbacks are great right away. And the Josh Allens are few and far between. There's a reason we always mention Josh Allen, because he's a unicorn in that realm. And, for Jaden Daniels to do what he did, and you can look at other really good quarterbacks, you look at Lamar and Mahomes and Herbert. Dak Prescott was phenomenal as a rookie. You can go through, a bunch of different quarterbacks who are really good as rookies and continue to be really good throughout their career. So I think that's a good sign for Jaden Daniels. But yes, as far as Caleb goes, I think it's important to remember that, he was thrown into a really difficult situation. And I mean, obviously he himself didn't play as well as people expected, but, I think all you have to do as well is go 2 years back and look at Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. I mean, after year 1, it was extremely similar. The number 2 pick was an absolute star. The number 1 pick had a really brutal rookie year, coaching change, all of that. And if you look at the two now, I mean, I think you still take Stroud, but like it's not as clear cut as it was at the end of the rookie season, it seems. So yeah, I think it's important to weigh it out. But shoot, there are a lot of people, a lot of Bears fans who watched that run from Washington last year with like, wait a second. So you're saying we could have had Dan Quinn, we could have had Cliff Kingsbury, we could have had Jaden Daniels. We're watching this team in the NFC Championship, and our team is on to its fifth head coach in the last 13 years. There was definitely a lot of that around Chicago, but I do think that, you know, getting Ben Johnson and seeing there is definitely hope that you know, Caleb, you know, who knows who will be the better quarterback, but yes, I'm with you. I think you gotta wait and see this out after just 1 year.
I think the one thing that's come out of the story about Caleb Williams, and there have been so many of them, and you've followed them, you know, the granular detail of all of them much more than I have. I still don't understand why they were hell-bent on just Caleb and essentially ignored all of the other quarterbacks in the lead up to the 24 draft. That is true, right? That Ryan Poles essentially didn't even consider a Jaden Daniels or a Drake May or a Penix Jr., et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to kind of definitively say he ignored them. Like, look, nobody took an official visit to Chicago except for Caleb Williams when they talk about those 30 visits. So certainly in that realm, I mean, they locked it on Caleb pretty early. And but the scouting staff had reports on all those guys. Like, I don't know exactly what their reports were on Jaden Daniels or Drake May. I have heard there was a lot of people in the building who liked JJ McCarthy. Not that they were going to pick him number one, certainly, but they did. I use that to bring up the example. Like, they did their research, like they did their diligence, but maybe it wasn't the due diligence that they should have done. But you know, it's a weird setup because in the moment, remember a whole lot of people saying that it should have been a real, like, this wasn't. We've had drafts where it's been, who are they going to take, one or two? Like in March of 2024, there weren't people saying the Bears should consider Jaden Daniels. Now, is that the media's fault? Was the media kind of bamboozled based on the evaluations and the sourcing and all the people that were all on board in Caleb? Maybe, but I think nationally speaking, it was just this fait accompli. And again, that's a public perception issue more so than a team evaluation issue. But yeah, I mean, the Bears, there were definitely some holes in their evaluation process. But I mean, the problem with the Bears, the path that led the Bears to Caleb Williams, to me, was almost more about infrastructure they'd put around Caleb Williams as opposed to the player. Because now you could argue that Jaden Daniels, we will look back at him down the line, that he is a transcendent player and person, and what he did in Washington was incredible, and he would have done that anywhere. Like, maybe he becomes that player. It's possible. It's also possible if the Bears drafted Jaden Daniels with Matt Eberflus as head coach and Shane Waldron offensive coordinator, it could have been just as bad as it was for Caleb Williams, because obviously there was a lot of holes in that building in terms of the support structure they had for a quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I think the lesson from all of these things in recent years is, if you've got a head coach that for all intents and purposes is borderline lame duck, and you bring in some OC who's probably not attached to the head coach and may not even be around, that is just a recipe for a first round quarterback being messed up. And by the way, sometimes irreparably. Although, you know, we've seen too many resurrections here, like the Baker Mayfields and the Sam Darnolds, to say that, you know, the Daniel Joneses, to say that anything's dead. But I do think it's important, like, when for NFL fans outside of Chicago, to recognize, yes, that was a talented team that he went into roster-wise. I think it was better than Washington's, honestly, this time last year. But the coaching situation and, you know, that hierarchy, you know, basically coach and front office was a messed up situation for him to be going into, and would have been messed up for anybody taking that high to be going into.
Yeah, and you know, fortunately or unfortunately, I have Caleb Williams was the third first-round quarterback I have covered whose coaching staff got fired after his rookie season. I saw it with Mitch Trubisky and John Fox. I saw it with Justin Fields and Matt Nagy. And then again with Caleb Williams, Matt Eberflus. This team just keeps doing it to himself, and they're hoping that Ben Johnson's finally the guy they can end the cycle and move forward. But yeah, you had a defensive head coach who had never really had experience developing a rookie quarterback. You brought in a play caller that hadn't had experience developing a rookie quarterback, and lo and behold, they struggled to develop a rookie quarterback. So yeah, it was one of the, now, I mean, you go back to the Commanders' narrative about this to your first question, and you can sit there and say 1 inch, how much would that have changed the season? Because obviously the Bears season was torpedoed after what happened at Northwest Stadium last year. But I think we all saw that there were holes in that thing, and shoot, the Bears offense was miserable for 3.5 quarters that late afternoon last season until Caleb brought them down for the go-ahead score. But yeah, I mean, it was not the best environment. I think Kevin O'Connell has said it. It's kind of gone viral a little bit that organizations ruin quarterbacks more often than quarterbacks kind of fail their organizations.
Yeah, no doubt. We're talking to Kevin Fishbane. He covers the Bears for The Athletic. By the way, I think that 1 inch definitely torpedoed your season much more than it uplifted ours from this standpoint. Jaden was, a bit banged up. It wasn't one of his better games. He ended up throwing for 325 or something like that, but a lot of, a bunch of that came on that last play. I think we had already seen signs that the team could be a pretty good team and that they were pretty lethal at times offensively, even though they weren't in that particular game. I wanted to ask you one more question before we get to kind of really looking at the Bears and what you think we're going to get Monday night. Adam Peters is pretty adamant, and I'll just tell you, I believe him because I believe that this is what they were keying in on from the very beginning, that even if he had number 1 overall, he would have taken Jaden Daniels. Do you believe him?
I do. Yeah, I do. I do believe that. And now you could sit there and say, was the perspective at which they were looking at Jaden Daniels different because they had a pretty good feeling who was going in front of him? Like, you could say like the way they scouted him.
Fair.
Like if you're scouting Caleb Williams, you're the number 2 pick. Are you scouting him differently because you're sitting there being like, okay, what are we doing here? He's not going to be there at number 2. Yeah. So like, I acknowledge that, but I do. I do believe him when he says that, and I think that one of the things that we've learned over the past year is that within the NFL scouting community, it was closer than maybe it was in kind of the media draft community,
no doubt,
if you will.
Even though it gained steam at the very end with a lot of people saying, what did happen for sure is that towards the end, Jaden really, media-wise, and I think this was scout-wise and team-wise, had created some pretty decent separation from whomever was number 3. Turned out to be Drake May, but there were some J.J. McCarthy people in there. But I think that's what really happened is the distance between number 2 and number 3 got great, increased.
Yeah. And look, these GMs, they fall in love with quarterbacks, and to some it's a detriment, and so far for Washington, it's worked out pretty well. So yeah, so when Adam Peters says that, I believe him, but I would be curious if he actually had the number 1 pick. Would the scouting would it have looked differently? But you're right. I do think that we, it's very easy to have looked at what Caleb Williams did and all those different things about him and just say this is the guy, and we don't really need to talk about anything else in the media. But it was much different, I think, in some of these draft rooms.
Yeah, I actually think, to put an end to this part of the conversation, I actually think that the conversation 10 years from now will be as much about all 6 of them in the top 12, which was record setting, as it will be Caleb or Jaden. I think it'll work out that way. We'll see. I mean, who knows? All right. So what is Washington going to see? Because they've won 2 games in a row. They've got a bye week. It seems like Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams were developing something there before the bye week. Have you seen significant improvement? Is there a lot of optimism offensively in terms of what the Bears are or what they're turning into?
I think there's optimism as far as they haven't reached anywhere near their potential. The Dallas game, they looked really good for the most part, but that was a bad Dallas defense, and they could not run the ball. And that's been the Bears' biggest problem on offense is they just can't get the running game going at all. And Ben Johnson said this week he's taking that personally. He says he focuses more on the run game than the pass game, and it's been miserable through 4 games. So I think I think Bears fans are like, oh wow, we are 2-2, and the offense hasn't come close to what we hope it can be with Ben Johnson at the helm. So there are some offensive line switches that have happened, and you get the bye week to self-scout and try to figure out what's going on with that run game. I mean, and the thing is, the pass game was really brutal for about 3 quarters in Las Vegas until the final drive. I mean, actually, in some ways, it was a very similar back and forth, ugly slog of a game as what happened when Chicago went to Washington. The difference this time was the Bears blocked the kick and won the game, and it was like euphoria. And I think for the Bears, and I'm always careful, and you've been around this game in sports for a long time too, and like you always got to be careful with the intangible element. But there is this kind of thing in the locker room that's just like, okay, we've lost so many of these games, and we actually won one of them. Like, does this, like, maybe this can, like, just from a sense of like, they all saw like, oh wow, this time we were the ones that blocked the kick. Like, it's possible for us to win a game like that. I think that actually did have some meaning from a confidence standpoint for those guys to head into the bye. But yeah, I mean, I think that the good thing for them is they were all in good moods when it came to trying to correct an offense that still has a long way to go.
Has a long way to go, but it is fair to say that especially a healthy offensive line, and you can tell me what the condition of Darnell Wright and Jonah Jackson are here in a moment heading into Monday night, but there's some really good skill position talent.
Yeah, I mean, Rome Odunze has been one of the best receivers in football through 4 games.
Yeah.
And the Bears, look, DJ Moore went into Washington 2 years ago and had a record-setting night. So we all know what he's capable of. They got this rookie Luther Burden, who you talk about potential. I mean, he oozes with it. And I'll tell you what, the guy who's been maybe the most clutch receiver from camp till now has been Olamide Zaccheaus.
Yeah.
And he's somebody that I know that Washington really liked him. And he came here as kind of almost like an afterthought. Okay, well, they need a slot receiver, and then they draft Luther Burden, and you're like, all right, eventually Burden will take over. When it's third down, Caleb Williams looks his way, and he's made, not huge plays, but he has been an important security blanket for the quarterback. So, you got Joe Thuney on that offensive line. That's made a big impact. The sack percentage is down a lot from last year. I mean, it had nowhere to go but down, but it has gone down in a big way. And again, I'm saying all this, acknowledging no run game, and they used a number 10 pick on a tight end, and he hasn't really gotten going yet. And I do believe that he's going to be a good player. So there's room for this thing to grow. And I do think that there's proof of concept in that fact that we all know Ben Johnson knows how to scheme up an offense. And the Bears haven't had people like that in that position before. Like, you kind of know that he's capable. Washington certainly knows it. I know that the playoff game last year, Detroit had a lot of turnovers. They also had a lot of yards in that game. So that's kind of the outlook for this offense and why people are kind of pretty hopeful.
Tell me real quickly the health of the offensive line. I mean, Darnell Wright, I'm convinced had he fallen in that draft, Washington that's who they wanted in that draft. How's he coming along? What's the health of the offensive line?
Yeah, so I'll be out at practice in a couple hours, and this is a big one for Darnell Wright. He was not out there on Tuesday or Wednesday. If he's not out there tomorrow, that's a bad sign for him for Monday night. He had this elbow injury, and I tell you what, watching him on the bench when he hurt that elbow against Dallas, it looked really bad. He was in a ton of pain. I couldn't believe he finished the game. So if he doesn't play, it'll be a second-round pick, Ozzie Trapillo, making his first career NFL start. And Ozzie actually did okay coming in the game against Las Vegas. He's got the size. He's got the smarts. He just took a step back in training camp. I think the speed of the game got to him a little bit. But like Darnell Wright's a really good player, but consistency has evaded him a little bit over the last year and a half. He's had some penalty issues. So when Darnell Wright's out there and playing at a high level, he's really good. So it does matter if he's not going to be out there, and obviously it impacts your depth as well.
Yeah, I mean, Washington's had some good fortune in going against the Giants, Raiders, and Chargers, all of whom had key offensive linemen out for the game, and it mattered in the game. Let's flip it to the defensive side of the ball, where the most obvious numbers matchup exists. Washington's the number one rush offense in the league, and the Chicago Bears, 31st against the run. DVOA, it's like 28th against the run. I would imagine this is an area that you guys have focused on, like, how do we stop the run?
Yeah, I joked to somebody yesterday that Washington might set a record for yards per carry or rushing yards in this game. I mean, just when you look at that matchup, the way you laid it out, it could get ugly. And the thing about a run game is, as much as the NFL has changed, you can run the ball at ease. Nothing else matters, I think. Like it's curtains often. Except for what the Bears did in Vegas when they gave up 240 rushing yards and still won. They hadn't done that in nearly 50 years. The Bears are getting TJ Edwards back, starting linebacker. They're getting Kyler Gordon back. Their nickel corner has not played yet this season. Kyler Gordon is really important to their run defense. He actually was second on the team last year in run stuffs, stops for no gain. So Dennis Allen has talked about before, it was like his opening press conference in January about using Kyler Gordon as a weapon. So I'm very intrigued to see how they do that. But those guys, the front four, and those guys need to do a better job shedding blocks. So that is the matchup that we've all kind of been talking about throughout the week. And like you can say the Bears might be able to, you get the two players back, you've had the bye week to look at it, like it can't be worse. But yeah, that's a big advantage for Washington to be able to go against a group that just hasn't been as sound as really they should be.
Has Tyreek Stevenson bounced back off of last year's embarrassment on that Hail Mary play to have a pretty good run of games, especially this year?
Yeah, what's interesting is he had a bad game in Detroit. Now, everybody had a bad game in Detroit. The Lions scored 50 points. But Tyreek Stevenson specifically had a rough day. To the point that I think people were sitting around being like, is he going to keep his job? All these different things. Then he goes out, second play against Dallas, he rips the ball away. Later has an interception, and then he has a diving pick against the Raiders, a couple pass defense. He's playing the last 2 weeks. He is playing as well as he probably has as a Bear. And he actually had some really good moments his rookie year. The thing with Tyreek Stevenson is it's just the consistency. It's just staying in the moment and not letting the moment get too big for him, which obviously the entire world saw last year. He has been very open about what that moment meant to him and what he has done in the past month. I will shout out my colleague Dan Weeder. Has a great story on Tyreek Stevenson up at The Athletic. What he's done in the last month that he did not do last year is he has owned up that what an egregious mistake that was. Last year, he kind of just tried to shrug it off and say, guys make mistakes. I made a mistake. You move on, without really fully publicly grasping what it meant. And I think he has now. He is playing with a ton of confidence. He knows what it's going to be like going in that building on Monday night. He knows the jeers he's going to get. But he's also playing really well right now. So all eyes are going to be on him. And what's been interesting is in Tyreek Stevenson's entire football career, that hasn't always gone well for him. Going back to college and high school, he's had these moments where he just has these gaffes. And so that's going to be very interesting to watch to see how he handles it. Because, just seeing him and talking to him at Hallis Hall and watching the way he's played the last 2 weeks, he seems as ready as he can be to kind of take that on head on. But anything can happen, and it could just take one error that he's going to have to really try to compose himself if that happens.
By the way, Jalen Johnson being missed significantly, right? I mean, this was the best player on that defensive side of the ball.
Yes. Oh yeah. I mean, it's a big loss. Nishan Wright, who's starting the other side, is a good story. Came kind of out of nowhere, out of training camp to win that job. But I mean, you talk about the drop off from Pro Bowl or All Pro, somebody that could shut down one half of the field. That is a big job. The last 2 weeks in those 2 wins, teams have not been able to really get going and really challenge him. So I would be curious to see. I'm sure Washington's going to go after him a little bit and really test him because that is certainly just from a talent level standpoint and experience that's a weak point in the defense.
All right, 2 quick ones to end up. Montez Sweat, what's he been doing in Chicago here recently?
Not a whole lot on the stat sheet. He's got 1 sack this year. What's interesting is I thought Montez Sweat had a really good summer. And Ryan Poles thought so too. Ben Johnson thought so too. Like you could tell in training camp, this is a guy that was ready to go. And for whatever reason, it just hasn't gotten there in games. The coaches have said that he needs to do a better job taking advantage of those one-on-one opportunities. My thing too is when a guy's, he's the highest paid player on the defensive side of football. You've got, I don't care if there's a double team. TJ Watt gets double teamed.
Yeah, right.
He still makes plays, right? Like I think Montez Sweat.
He's not TJ Watt though. He was never going to be TJ Watt.
Paying him like somebody that should, that doesn't have to, that should be able to wreck a game here and there. And again, I saw it over the summer. I thought, we could get there. He was very open about last year being a disappointment, and he battled injuries, played through a lot of injuries, and just didn't have the numbers. But yeah, we haven't seen what we saw those first 5 games when the trade happened 2 years ago. I mean, he was a monster. And we haven't seen it yet. And I still think it's going to come because, as I said, I thought he had a really good training camp in preseason, but it has not been there in the first 4 games.
All right. Thanks for doing this. Just finish it up with this. What do you think happens Monday night?
Yeah, I'm expecting a close game. I'm gonna pick Washington. I just think that is a team that it's a better team right now, and I'm a little nervous about that matchup we talked about earlier about the Washington run game against the Bears run defense. I think what's important for the Bears is to not make the game bigger than it is. You said at the top, right? Like this is just a regular game for Washington, and the Bears are trying to make that it's just a regular game. But I think it's gonna be so hard for a lot of those guys to walk in that building and not think we have to win this game after what happened last year. And maybe that if they do win, maybe that's part of it. But I just think right now where these 2 organizations are at, the Commanders are just ahead. But I do think it's really close.
Thanks for doing this. Enjoyed it. Kevin Fishbane, everybody. Also, not only writes for The Athletic, he's the host of Breaking In with Kevin Fishbane, a podcast you can get anywhere you get podcasts. Thanks. Enjoy the trip up here or out here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yep. Kevin Fishbane. Not up here. No, it's not up here. It's out there. It's out here. Traveling east. Different time zone. Monday night football. All right. Let's go back to what we were asking. And if you want to jump back on the phones, you can do that. 301-230-0980. I'll give you the update on the poll as well after Philadelphia's loss last night. Who do you got in the NFC East? And there's also something from last night's game I have not talked about, but it did get pretty old and pretty slowed down in the moment last night for about 2.5 minutes of game time. Discuss tush push stuff when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. We are also free and live on the Odyssey app. So before we get back to the phone lines, who you got in the NFC East? The other part of the Eagles game last night that, once again, generated a lot of response, most of it, I think, appropriately negative, is the Eagles running 4 straight tush pushes, starting with a 3rd and 1 at the Giant 3-yard line, down 13-10 midway through the second quarter. They didn't get it. Then the next one on 4th and 1, they got it. And then 1st and goal at the 1, they didn't get it. And then on 2nd and goal at the 1, they got it. 4 straight tush pushes. Apparently it's a record. It doesn't seem like a record to me. It seems like they've done it 4 times in a row, 3 times in a row in other games. And that's the nature of this play because it's just so hideously boring. It's like I've said before, there are so many elements to this that have to be considered. I still can't believe they did not outlaw this before the season. But number one is it is a play that has total predictability. It doesn't matter how many times. Once they line up, the final result 94% of the time will end in a first down. It's sort of like what the old extra point was, at 94, 95%. That's why they moved it back to 33 yards to create some drama associated with it. So it's a play that is utterly predictable in terms of the ultimate result, which isn't what the NFL wants. 4 of them in a row, and I've mentioned this before, and people took me to task, and I understand the reason why. When I said it slows the pace of the game, many of you responded with, well, no, it doesn't. It's not like they stop the clock or anything like that. The clock runs. That's true. I'm not talking about it literally. I'm talking about last night, 2 minutes and 6 seconds of the game clock rolling by for 4 plays that have literally no drama to them at all. None. These are moments in which you can literally get up, go to the bathroom, get up, go get something to eat. This is not going to be anything resembling a normal scrimmage play, which is we don't really know what's going to happen on this play. The other thing, too, and I've mentioned this many times, is that the Eagles, I think, have given up a lot of yards by not running normal plays. We know what 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, potential big play, chunk play, that exists in those situations more than they do in other situations. Now, you can make the argument, hey, I'd rather retain possession and not have to punt or take the risk of punting. I get it. But they take away big play opportunities, and they need big play opportunities. And lastly, it's just not officiated. Once again, last night, there's a clear false start from the right guard. Does not get called. They're not officiating. They're not enforcing the rules with the play. I honestly would put it at 0% chance that this play exists next year. They will institute the rule that says no aiding via push or pull of any runner at any time behind the line of scrimmage or at the line of scrimmage. It was a rule that was in place all the way through 2006, was it? And then the rules changed. So for most of our football watching days, for most of us, this rule existed. It was not allowed. 4 straight tush pushes last night. Utter boredom. And it's got to go. It's an abomination to watch. And I'll say it a million times. You can believe me if you want, or you don't have to if you're an Eagle fan. It has nothing to do with the fact that it's you. If it were the Panthers doing it, I would feel the same way if the Panthers were good and we were seeing it in the biggest highlighted games every week. 2 minutes and 6 seconds of nothing. No chance for anything exciting to happen. 2 minutes and 6 seconds of football. That cannot happen moving forward. It won't. There's no chance. I'd bet my firstborn on it. All right, back to the question of the day. After Philly's loss last night, who do you have in the NFC East? I put a poll up at Kevin Sheehan DC if you want to vote. Right now, yeah, of course. Over 600 votes in the first hour. Washington, 80.8%. Philly, 14.3% of the vote. Dallas, 3.5%. The Giants at 1.4%. I think Washington can win the division because I thought they could win it before the season started because I think they've got the best quarterback in the division. So That's my default. Now we have more information. Philly's struggling, at least for now. They could get it together. They're certainly capable of it. Dallas is a bit of a surprise. Best offense, yardage-wise in the NFL, certainly can put points up on the board, and they're not even healthy on offense. Could they get to the point where defensively they get a little healthier and they get to the point where they're just bad instead of horrific, and they have the kind of season our team had last year? I don't know. It's the NFL. They need to be a lot better on defense, though. A lot better, or at least opportunistic. Because I don't think Dak is Jaden in terms of the overall threat posed to a defense. He's playing well, though. Max likes Washington. I like Washington to win the NFC East. Let's go to our guy, Ryland, our favorite Canadian friend who lives in Oklahoma City. Go ahead.
Hey, Kev. Good morning, buddy.
What's up,
like
Ryland?
you say, just living the dream, my man. Let's start with the tush push. I think that's a joke, and the Eagles are as well. I think something's going on there, and it's bigger than just the turmoil in there. I think Hurts is not an elite quarterback. I don't know what he is, but he's not elite. The Giants with the rookie will be fun to watch, but they're not real. The Cowboys, like you say, are a shock, but I refuse to believe in that team because of the culture issue at the top. And on the other side of Dan, I think that I can see that more clearly now. So I'm saying the Skins are winning with 12 wins, but a big one Monday night, that's for sure.
I don't think it's going to be 12. I predicted 11-6 regular season. I think that's in play, but I have a feeling, Ryland, it's going to be a division that's won with 10 wins. Maybe 11 will be required because the NFC East has, as we know, the AFC West and it has the NFC North. And you got games with the Lions and the Packers among division teams, still with the Chiefs and the Chargers and the Broncos. There's a lot left here, and I'm still skeptical about what Washington can be defensively against the better teams, the healthier teams in the league. But I could see a season like last year. Last year they won 12. I could see a season like last year where maybe it's a game or two less, but still just get into the dance with Jaden at quarterback. Our guy Mark in Largo. What's up? Who you got winning the division?
I'm not wavering from what I said at the beginning of the season. I got them going 14-3. Now I waver with the two losses, but I think the two losses, understanding everything there is. Look, this game Monday night is a bigger game psychologically for the Bears. And that's where I think the way the Bears are coming into this game is great for if you're a Commanders fan and the Commanders, because they're so focused on what happened last year that they don't realize that Washington's a much better team this year than they were last year. And that's where I think
they're a better they have the capability of being a better team on Monday night than they were last year on that Sunday afternoon.
I would agree. And I just think that Washington, let's look at the other Dallas. Who is Dallas? Okay, Dallas played a great game against Green Bay. I personally think if Washington runs the ball against Green Bay, it's a better game. I don't know if they win, but it's a better game if they run the football. Just like I think if they ran the football against Atlanta, it's a better game. They probably beat Atlanta if Jaden's in there and they run the football. But my thing with Dallas is, name me somebody who Dallas has beaten that's credible. Nobody. And the meat of their schedule.
Well, they tied Green Bay.
Tough.
Credible.
And we're finding out that Green Bay is kind of fraudulent. We're finding that out right now.
Let's wait on that one. Let's wait on that one.
Cincinnati on Sunday. They're going to lose Cincinnati on Sunday.
You really? They're going to lose as a 15-point favorite?
Don't call me crazy because I was the same person.
Look, nothing's crazy. And I'll tell you what, I always look at the games in which survivor pool players will load up on one team. And anybody that hasn't had the Packers in a survivor pool this weekend will have the Packers against the Bengals. So those games are always a little bit scary. But I think Green Bay coming off the bye week, et cetera, that they're going to be ready to roll.
Receivers are hungry, and you got a quarterback that can get them the ball. But back to
but you don't have a line that can block for the 41-year-old quarterback.
That may be true too. That's why I don't understand why they didn't go after Jameis Winston or Russell Wilson. But that's another story for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Did you see Russ in there last night for the few plays he got in there? He's terrible.
Well, that's true too. That's true.
By the way, just completely, I'm going to do to you what you do to me all the time. I'm going to become uncoachable here. Russell Wilson was an absolute, I think, lock Hall of Famer after
Oh,
his
heck yeah.
Seattle days. And what'll be interesting with his case is, will Denver, Pittsburgh, and the Giants leave this lasting impression of a diva quarterback who couldn't do it even close to the way a Hall of Famer is supposed to do it at the end of his career?
I would agree.
Just
I would
just
agree.
digress for a moment, but go ahead.
No, not it's quite all right. Look, I think if Jaden is upright, he's clearly the best quarterback in the NFC East, and maybe the best quarterback in the NFC. Period.
Yeah.
I know people will have arguments with that. Maybe they will say Jared Goff. Look, Kevin, I don't think Jared Goff, if he's quarterbacking against Washington, he becomes one-dimensional against them. That's why I don't see Detroit beating us when they play us. I don't see them beating.
Well, they didn't need to be one-dimensional against us last year. They should have kept handing the ball off to Jahmyr Gibbs. That's what they should have done.
Well, you can't run on Washington this year. Now, you could throw on Washington, and that's where I think Detroit
well, when you say you can't run on
them,
them, let's wait until they play like a team that really likes to line it up and run it against teams, because Bijan looked pretty good.
Line it up and run. Atlanta lines it up and run.
Yeah, and it was an okay day stopping the run. An okay day.
That's true.
It wasn't a great day. It was an okay day. All right,
that's true.
You got Washington winning the division, right?
14-3.
Okay.
Representing the
I got to
NFC
move
in
on.
the Super Bowl and beating Buffalo in the Super Bowl just to piss off Bills fans.
Stay on hold, everybody else. We'll do one more segment of this. Ben will join us at 12. Smell test picks next hour.
All right. Happy Football Friday, everybody. We start off with a recap of Thursday Night Football. The Giants, they beat up on the Philadelphia Eagles in a game of man football. The human wrecking ball. Cam Scatabo puts up 3 touchdowns, and Jackson Dart completes just under 70% of his passes. The Giants beat the Philadelphia Eagles 34-17. And the Philadelphia Phillies, they fall to the Dodgers in a heartbreaker that goes into extras. Ryan Kerkering loaded up the bases and has a dribbler that ends up at his feet, decides to throw it home, and the ball just ends up way too far away from JT Realmuto. Dodgers walk it off and advance to the NLCS. The Chicago Cubs, they force Game 5 against the Milwaukee Brewers. Bit of a bullpen game, but it came together for Chicago as they shut down the Brewers. Michael Busch, Kyle Tucker, and Ian Happ, all with homers for the Cubs. They win 6-0. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Den's office throughout all of football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
This segment brought to you by IHOP, introducing the IHOP value menu, where all your breakfast faves are just $6 each every day. Where else can you get a big, filling, sit-down breakfast for only $6? Go to your happy plates with the $6 IHOP value menu, available every day at IHOP, $7 in some locations. Who do you got winning the NFC East? Bones, go ahead.
Hey, Kevin, man, thanks for taking my call. Shout out to my main man, Max, man. You know, man, it's not a question with me. You know, I ain't hesitant, and, you know, none of that. It's the burgundy and gold. I got the burgundy and gold, plain and simple. I ain't got no buts. I ain't got no ifs about nothing or none of that. It's the burgundy and gold going to win the NFC East. And you know what, Kevin? Man, about that Philly thing, man, I'm still in my feelings about them people going to play for the Phillies, man, from the Nets, man, especially Bryce Harper, man. So I ain't feeling them.
That wasn't his fault.
I'm one of them ones.
Yeah, well, the whole Bryce Harper thing, I've never understood it. The Nats clearly didn't want him as much as Philadelphia did. Thanks, Bones. Appreciate it. Let's go to Jason and Laurel. Jason, who do you have winning the NFC East now that Philly seems to be in big trouble?
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, you and Max, as always. Look, you know where I'm at. There's blood in the water, and it's not in our waters. Philly's vulnerable. AC's vulnerable. I think Baltimore's vulnerable. Detroit's got to prove they can beat us. I just think not only is the East in play, I think this is the Super Bowl window. And I know things can change, but I wish one of our games against Philly was like in the next couple of weeks instead of at the end of the season. There's 2 games on the rest of our schedule
good
that
point.
Right now, today, scare me, and that's the Seattle game because it's a short week, and the Denver game.
Yeah, coming back from
I think we could run the table. Other than those 2 games are the ones that make me nervous. Now you're right. Philly can bring it up. But Kev, we have the best quarterback in the NFC. We're not healthy, and we're running and establishing a run identity. Who knows how many of these rookie the weak things that Bill's going to win. I mean, this looks good. This looks like this could be a year where that Super Bowl window's open. And I'm excited. I am shaking like my washing machine overloaded on spin cycle. That
okay,
loss last night to Philly was amazing.
that's a loud spin too. Thanks, Jason. Appreciate it. Look,
thanks, Kev.
I think they're in this window. We've talked about it since the end of last year, rookie quarterback contract window. I think the development here, 5 weeks into the season, with the first game in week 6 being played, is just how deep with legitimately good teams, we'll find out if any of them are great, the NFC overall is. Let's go to Paulie. Paulie, go ahead.
Big guy, man. Hail to the W.
Hail to W.
Of course I got us winning the division, man. As long as we stay to the formula of feed and Shaq and then let Kobe go to work, man. This shouldn't be too much of a problem. But I'm going to tell you what I seen last night. Last night was like looking in the mirror because that team at the Giants, they believe in their quarterback now. And belief is an amazing thing. You know, that's what happened to us last year. Once the team started believing in Jaden, it felt like it was a game they couldn't win.
Right.
And that's the type of feeling I'm seeing out there in East Rutherford. You know. Look,
so what are you saying? Are you saying that the Giants will end up being the biggest competition in the NFC East for Washington?
I think so, man. Because look at the quarterback skills. Dart can do what Jaden can do. He can throw it. He can run it. You know, better than the other 2 guys. You know, the league better be. The division's lucky that Neighbors is out, but that team will really be feeling itself. You know, the Eagles are going through the motion, man.
I'm buying a lot of what you're selling. Now, do I think that they can actually get to, that point in the season in which they're, 8-6 or 9-7 or, 9-6 and they're legitimately in it? I think it's a bit of a stretch at this point because of no Neighbors, to your point. because he is a true rookie who they weren't even sure of should start the regular season. And by the way he plays, man, he takes a lot of hits. And I know Jaden did too. You know, he's left 2 games now that he has started in. He's left 2 games banged up in the middle of those games.
What's the one thing you always used to say, Shane?
What?
About the Giants. They are very talented on defense.
They are.
They might
They've
have
had
the
some
best defense in the division.
Yep.
You know, so
Right.
it's saying that running the ball, they'll give Scatterboo the ball. So they're not scared to take the heat off the quarterback. So
Yep.
I got the Giants as a team that we need to be looking out for.
All right. Holler at you later. Let's finish it up. Bobby in North Carolina. Quickly, Bobby, go ahead.
Hey, Kev. I still think we have a chance, but, I mean, Philly's not going away. They're too talented. But, Kevin, we've caught a huge break already. We were 2 games behind them a couple weeks ago. We started out slow compared to what I thought we were going to be. Played without Jaden 2 games. Monday night is a huge spot because we've got 2 tough rookies. Now it's going to be a brutal test for us just because they're very good offensive. KC will be KC. So we're in a big spot Monday night. We got to win our home games. And if you would have told me before the season started that we would have played without JD,
Bobby, you're breaking up, but I get your point. And I do look, every week I think they'll have a chance because Daniels is out there. If he's not out there, their chances aren't as great. So you look at Dallas, at Chiefs, Seattle at home, Lions, and then 2 weeks later, Denver at home. Those are toss-up games, man. They are. The point spread is going to be super short either way by the time we get there. So you look at home on Monday night, and you're like, you got to take care of these home games, especially the ones where you're not playing the Lions, you're not playing Denver, you're not playing, Dallas or Philly. Yeah, I see that. Getting to 4-2 is big. 3-3, we're going to have some of the same conversations. I can see it coming right now on Tuesday that we had after the Atlanta game. Context is everything, how it happens, etc. But it's not going to be easy Monday night either. You're catching a team off a bye that's won 2 in a row with a creative offensive guy as their head coach and a quarterback that's gaining confidence. We'll have a lot more on that one coming up on Monday. All right, this upcoming hour, Ben Standig next. We've got smell test picks. We'll go around the NFL. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980, the team980.com. Don't forget, we are free and live on the Odyssey app, and all of our NFL talk on this show is presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday, all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. Ben Standings is still standing after all these years, and he's with us here on Friday at 12 noon, as he is every week. He'll join us Monday, too, game day, this coming weekend against the Bears. So the injury report, the first one out yesterday, or the second one, I guess. And I just want to ask you real quickly, like, are we essentially ruling Terry McLaurin out? Is that it? I mean, he didn't practice yesterday. I know he was out and about, but do you think this is going to be week 3 without him?
Well, I mean, as we know, obviously guys can make, you could not practice all week and still go. But when you tack on the 2 previous weeks where he had done very little, like at least to use Jaden Daniels as context, he was a Friday limited participant on the first week that he missed. Then the next week there was, 2 limited. So there was at least some sign of trend moving forward. Here, the trend's been pretty minimal. If we're saying that at best it was him running up a small hill, not at full speed yesterday at practice. So it doesn't look great, but we'll see. We are not out there today. This is a weird week because of the Monday night, so we don't get it back out there until Saturday, but they will presumably put out an injury report today stating something. So if he's not listed as at least limited, I would say he'll be out another week.
So, a lot of the questions about Jaden before last week were, he's chomping at the bit. How are you, coach, able to keep him, from, doing too much, and how are you handling those conversations with him, that he wants to practice, et cetera. Is that the same situation with Terry?
Well, it's interesting.
I know the injuries are different.
Yeah. No, it's interesting that you phrase it like that. In a broader context, whether you're talking about your favorite sports team or politics or whatever, there's always this notion of bias in the media, and most of that, at least in my world, is hokum. But it does factor into a degree with how you ask certain questions. And again, in the case of Jaden Daniels, obviously it was there was at least a feel that hey, he is itching to go. That this injury is something, but it's what's going. It's just a matter of what is it, pain tolerance. We get the feeling he wants to go. Now I'm not saying Terry doesn't want to go, but I'm just saying we honestly probably haven't really asked that type of question because I think it's all a bit more of a mystery the way that it was all presented. Right off the bat with this, he's getting a second opinion. He doesn't need surgery. Wait, why are we even discussing surgery? We didn't know it was even that bad. And Dan Quinn, in my view, feels a little bit more reluctant to answer some Terry questions than Jaden ones. Not that we ever really knew the exact nature of Jaden's knee injury, but yeah, I'm sure Terry is itching to go. I just don't know in the same way because of the way things went down with his contract. It leads to what's going on here, and maybe I don't know. Maybe we just haven't asked that type of question yet for me to tell you definitively what I think. I mean, again, he wants to play, but I don't know what's going on here exactly with why. Is he actually close? Is he not close? Is there something else going on? That's the part I agree. I think it's fair to say we need to learn more.
Deebo Samuel, is it the same thing as last week with the heel? He'll miss a few practices, but be good to go Monday night?
That is my impression. I mean, the fact that he spoke with the media yesterday suggests, that he wasn't, he wasn't, if it was something bigger, right, he's probably not going to talk. They can all sort of fall under the guise of, you didn't practice or you're hurt, so you don't talk to the media, and he did. So, yeah, I think he's good to go there. Obviously, that Washington is 3-2. Having Jaden miss 2 games, Terry's now missed 2, other guys have missed multiple games. That and the offense has still largely been clicking. Is I think a huge testament to what Deebo Samuel has done. Not just him, of course, the run game and the offensive line, but as the primary playmaker, as evidenced by last week. I mean, Jaden, more than half of Jaden's completions went to Deebo. He had, on the final drive to put the game away, 3 catches, including a touchdown, plus a 17-yard pass interference penalty.
Yeah.
And, it's one thing to produce. It's another thing to sort of put your stamp on everything. And he's been doing that a lot, obviously.
Sam Cosmi was a full go in practice yesterday. When he is ready to return, and I want you to give me, your best estimate on that, who does he replace?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, both of those are fascinating questions. I mean, he will, of course, go back to right guard, which is where Andrew Wiley is right now. And, look, I think Wiley is obviously a guy that is, he's a proven vet who played inside with the Chiefs at, peak Kansas City. And, I guess my nod would be a little bit towards him, but, when you talk about chemistry on the offensive line, that's always a big deal. And Chris Paul is the one that's been there on the left side in between Laramie Tunsil and Tyler Biotish. Both of them are free agents after the year, so you really can't play, though, what's the longer-term angle? Paul is younger. So I'm guessing Wiley, but if you tell me it's Paul just for the chemistry aspect, I'd be like, okay. I mean, I think he's played pretty well so far. As for Cosmi, I think today is a big day in that assessment. They had a padded practice yesterday. I talked to Cosmi for a little bit before and after the practice, and he was, look, we all just kind of, a guy gets hurt, we go, okay, he'll be back in 9 to 12 months, and he goes away, and we don't really think about it too much other than to say how is the team going to replace him. But, it is a complete and utter disaster for these guys to have to endure all they're doing, not just the rehab, not just the recovery, but, they're often in like isolation. They're often away from their teammates and just different schedules and all these things. And then when you do get thrown out there, sure, he's done the various rehab drills and certain practical aspects, like hitting the tackling dummies and things like that. But,
right.
He was saying that, to your body, the nervous system is a massive difference when all of a sudden you're getting pushed and pulled in different directions. And so he wanted to see how he felt coming out of this padded practice. I think he was okay, but, I'm not going to be surprised if they decide to be cautious and let him sit for one more week.
Talking to Ben Standig at Ben Standig on X on Twitter. Ben writes a Substack column. He's got a podcast. Both are called Last Man Standing. So before we look ahead to Monday, and we'll get your thoughts and we'll get your pick on Monday. You don't have to make it today. We're less than a month away from the trade deadline. Last year, they made a move. They went after, Marshawn Lattimore, traded for a corner because they felt like they needed something there. Didn't really produce for him last year. And the truth is, he hasn't produced in a major way this year either. Do you think they'll be looking to add something or maybe even sell something between now and November 4th?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you throw out the caveat that they would say, hey, we're always looking to improve the team, whatever that means. So, there's always that angle. In terms of the acquisition, when we talked about this, or at least I've talked about this over the course of the season, receivers seem to be the one who are like, hey, they need to get some help. And honestly, I don't know that that's necessarily changed. I mean, Chris Moore the last 2 games has played 75 snaps and has 0 receptions, right? I mean, Luke McCaffrey.
And dropped a touchdown.
Right, and dropped the touchdown. Luke McCaffrey was really good on that one catch last week, the 50-yarder, a great catch. Helped, turn one of the plays that helped turn the game around. It was the only catch that he had. Jalen Lane, there's a lot of promise there. We see the speed. He had the big 3rd and 16 catch last week, but again, it's been relatively low production. But both those guys are up and coming, but they're young and inexperienced. So. I think the Noah Brown part of this is obviously key, not just when he's back. Now, he has practice this week, so if you say, what do you think about him playing? I think the chances of him playing look pretty reasonable. I definitely am not going to say he will play based on his history, but at least he's been out there the last couple of days, and, he seems like, from a demeanor perspective, somebody that's really focused on getting out there. But what about tomorrow? What about the next week? Is he making it through the season? Are you counting on that? And then if not, then what do you do? Maybe that's more of a lower level acquisition than it is like a Marshawn Lattimore type. But that to me is the one position where I wonder what they think. I'm going to guess that they are feeling much better about it now, assuming that Terry and Noah Brown are, back relatively soon. Other than that, I mean, look, I don't know. Is Brandon Coleman potential guy they move at the trade deadline, seeing as how he was a third-round pick a year ago, has started out games in this league, but now, when you just asked me who's going to who does Cosme replace, and didn't even discuss, well, what about Brandon Coleman? And I think it's reasonable to not do so based on where things stand. So could you move him? I mean, again, this team has 6 draft picks next year, but only 2 of them are, in the top, I think 4 rounds or so. Because of the other trades they've made, they've got a lot of, they don't have a lot of capital up high. Obviously, you always have to get that. They have a ton of free agents next year, and they're still building a roster, relatively speaking. So if they can find ways to add more picks, I don't think that would be nuts, but it's hard to say they're going to do that when we constantly say, hey, their depth is still kind of wonky. So I feel less confident about them doing anything at the deadline than maybe I did a few weeks ago. But again, let's see where we are with Noah Brown and maybe some other spots by the deadline.
That was interesting, the Brandon Coleman idea. I didn't think about that. They're clearly very high on Chris Paul at this point with the way he's played, and I think justifiably so. And Cosme's coming back, and they've got versatility with Wiley, and Brandon Coleman started a lot of games as a rookie. And, there was, let's face it, that's why you can't be too hyped after a year, and you can't be too down after a year when it comes to these draft choices, because I think a lot of people had Brandon Coleman before the Laramie Tunsil trade pegged in as the left tackle for years to come. I wonder what they could get for Brandon Coleman right now. And I'm not even suggesting it would be the right thing to do. And maybe there's still a great belief in Brandon Coleman, but I bet they can't get what they used to draft him. It's got to be a 4th or a 5th, best case.
Yeah, for sure. Going back to last offseason, you're right. I think in a general sense, I was like, okay, well, here's the guy. I definitely wasn't of that mindset. That's why I was asking Peters and others at the combine, hey, is Brandon Coleman your left tackle? And then when the answer was like, oh, we like him, and then never said he was, I was like, okay. But then they didn't just move past him at left tackle. They then did the same at right tackle by taking Connerly, which thus moved him inside. And, we all get too worked up over like how if a rookie doesn't look like an all-pro in the first month of his career, like, oh boy, this is a bust, right?
Yeah, Adam Peters is a joke, and then the flip side is Adam Peters is cooking after 3 games.
Right, but in this case, to make like benching Allegretti as they did simultaneously, look, Allegretti's been a viable guy, and if he is, like he was like a Wes Schweitzer type guy, he can start, but he comes off the bench.
Schweitzer.
Well, He was like that 5, lineman 5.5 often for them. Allegretti kind of thing. But to bench a guy you just drafted in the
Ari
third
Kwanjo,
round,
an Ari Kwanjo type.
There you go. But with Coleman, to bench him after 2 games this year and replace him with a guy who, give Chris Paul credit, he's improved. He's a guy that's kind of been hanging on, and now he's given this opportunity and he's taking advantage of it. But you would tell me Chris Paul wasn't even going to make the roster back in OTAs. I'd be like, all right, well, it's conceivable, sure. And if you look again, Chris Paul's not under his contract is over after this year, right? So, it's not like he's like, oh, well, he's the guy for the next 3 years. Well, they can, I'm sure, re-sign him, but that's not a lock. Whereas, like with Coleman, he's still on his rookie deal for 2 years past this. So it says something that they were motivated to make that move, and that they haven't seemingly, really kicked those tires about moving him back. So that's that's the reason I'm saying, hey, maybe there's something there. Look, we saw, I know they didn't draft Jahan Dotson, the Peters regime, but they moved on from him last year. Brian Robinson a little bit the same. So they've been willing to say, hey, there's a guy here that we is young and up and coming, and we could just sit here and justify and say, hey, there's been an investment made by this organization. Let's go forward. And yet they didn't. So, that's why I think it's at least something to consider.
Remember when Eric Flowers played really well and then all of a sudden kind of disappeared and his career ended?
Yeah.
He played really well that one season, and then it was like, well, wait a minute, why aren't they bringing him back? And then nobody signed him. I think that's true.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. I mean, I always find it funny. Look, it would be fun, as I think we would all probably agree, to be on the other side of all these discussions, to be in the front office, to be, look at how the rest of the world is interpreting what's happening versus whatever their reality actually is. And I mean, it's why we all get frustrated at times, certainly as a reporter does, when you try to get, hey, why this, why that, and then either A, they don't tell you, or they say something that's just completely, I'm not saying this group, but just in general, they say something that's completely misleading, and you're just like, oh, come on, like we all endured the Curtis Samuel journey there, with that injury. Like, hey, what are we doing here? So it's always fascinating to wonder what is actually happening. But I mean, the reality is, you can point to any, Adam Schefter on down, and nobody often really ever knows.
That's true. All right, I'll ask you, finish up with a couple kind of looking forward. First of all, did last night change the way you feel about how gettable the division is?
Well, I mean, not just last night. When the Eagles win a game the week before, where they didn't complete a pass in the second half and won, like we talked a lot about
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we talk a lot about how Washington, and correctly so, there was a lot of things that went their way last year on top of their own good play. Well, I mean, it's one thing to win a game in the last play. It's another thing for that to happen and still win. I mean, they've been showing signs of vulnerability throughout. I mean, I know fantasy football players have not been happy necessarily with like A.J. Brown getting the ball in the passing game in general. Saquon Barkley was not a massive factor last night relative to, his play. And, we know that on defense, they lost a bunch of guys in the offseason, which, what happens when you have a really good team and others want your free agents. And so, like, they were vulnerable. And then, look, there's always you're going to get the best effort from the other team at all times. Like, I don't know, we'll see where the Giants go. Obviously, Jackson Darts had a really fun start here to his rookie season. But, the Eagles thing is definitely curious. But again, I guess the thing with the Eagles is, when the Chiefs are struggling, we all say the same thing. Cool. We'll see them in January, and everybody will be petrified when they're playing. I think we should probably feel the same about the Eagles, because it wasn't just they won last year. They've been a pretty successful team here now for a few years. But I don't know. It feels a little less. I'm a little less confident in that. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the division, it's gettable, but let's see Washington win 2 in a row before I go too crazy there.
All right, what are you thinking Monday night?
Well, I mean, it's obviously really. I mean, the amount of subplots are pretty significant. The Hail Mary, obviously, the first and second pick from last year's draft, Ben Johnson rejecting Washington. Before they hired Dan Quinn, all those kinds of things.
Okay, let's make sure we're clear on this, because I know you know this. He didn't reject Washington. He didn't turn down an offer.
Well, I rejected them from the interview perspective.
The interview. He rejected the interview when they were on their way. Correct. But more likely than not, I don't think it was going to, in my opinion, because I had said from the beginning that how much they loved Quinn. I still don't think that even if they got to that interview stage, it was going to result in an offer necessarily. I mean, it could have. He could have blown him away with how hungry he was to be a head coach and had the PowerPoint set up and ready to roll. But I guess the thing that it just irks me a little bit, and you know this because we've talked about it, is the Quinn was the 7th, 8th, 9th, 11th choice crowd. I mean, they clearly had no clue what was going on during that search.
Yeah, I mean, I think, without getting too in the weeds here, Dan Quinn has seemed, it's been very clear the line of demarcation between where Adam Peters does and what Dan Quinn does. And Dan Quinn, when we ask certain questions or get to certain topics, he walks up the line and then stops and says, "Go talk to that guy." I think Ben Johnson, and look, he was the hotter candidate at the time. As we saw when ultimately he did go take the Bears job, I think he wanted more. Which, sure, I mean, why not? But I don't think he was getting that here. And I feel like with the Bears, he probably has more say in what's going on. And that may have, from his perspective, that might be the end of it. From Washington's perspective, I talked to somebody the other day, and for what these two teams needed, I mean, Dan Quinn was a much better fit than Ben Johnson. Not just this organization, this city needed a big fat hug, and Dan Quinn is more of that guy. Ben Johnson is more of a, hey, I'm going to yell and scream and tell you how great I am, and maybe he is all that, but that's not what was needed here a year ago.
And they sensed that right from the beginning after they talked to him on their first call. This was the right culture guy for sure. All right, I'm running out of time here, but just we'll get your pick on Monday night. But it's a matchup where you look ahead and it's like somebody said it last hour, a caller. This is kind of a game you kind of need to get, and so do they. It should be a good game, but I think you got to come away somehow with a win to get to 4-2 with what's ahead.
Well, and this is what I was saying last week, that last week was a perception versus a reality game, because we can keep sitting here and saying that this is a team that is still a contender off of what we saw and some of the improvements they've made, but you have to continue to move forward. So they do last week, but last week goes away if they fumble at home against the Bears. Look, the Bears have plenty of weapons on offense. Their offensive line revamped has done a pretty good job of keeping Caleb Williams healthy. Their defense still has some concerns, and again, if there's no Terry, are they able to still move the ball? The story I put up today on the Substack is about how Debo's rise here. Not only is it impressive, but it's a stark reminder of how terrible the number 2 receivers have been with Terry. We talked so much about the quarterback carousel that he endured. I laid it out. Go look at that. The receivers have been an utter disaster. So, can Debo, if he's the one guy, can he keep this up by himself in the Superman role? Does he have to get real help from somebody else? We'll see. But this is a huge game. Even though,
look, if they lost him to injury, and he's been injured a lot in recent years, it would really hurt big time. He is. Right now, you called it during camp. You said he was by far and away having the best camp of anybody offensively. And we've seen it play out. He is on a record pace for receptions, touchdowns for his career. And he's had a couple of pretty good years. And they would be, as great as Jaden is, it would be a big hit losing him. Big hit. I got to roll. Thanks.
Awesome, man. Appreciate it as always.
Ben Standig, everybody. I've got like 16 picks coming up next. All right, this segment of the show presented by Paramount Plus. You can't count on much, but you can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. Watch your local NFL game live every Sunday all season long. Visit ParamountPlus.com/NFL to get started today. So gave out the Giants last night plus the 7.5. So off to a 1-0 start. Now 41-26-4 on the year, hitting at over 61% now on the season. And knock on wood, have not had a losing week in the first 6 weeks of the season. Last week, I didn't love the card, went 4-3. This week, there's just so much to like. There are just a lot of games in which the public sort of has identified a team as the wrong team favored or the right team favored by not enough. And it starts tonight with Fresno State, a 5-1 football team on the road at Colorado State. Colorado State is 1-4. Fresno's laying 6.5. There are a couple of 7s out there. And nobody thinks the line's big enough. So I'll take Colorado State in the points plus the 7 on a total contrarian play. I liked Colorado State last week, did not give them out, and they did not get it done. And sometimes when you see that the odds makers, for some reason, believe Colorado State is better than their record indicates. They've lost 3 games in a row. To UTSA, to Washington State, and Washington State's a bad football team. They got blown out last week by San Diego State. I almost gave Colorado State out. Meantime, Fresno has won 5 in a row, but the last 2 have been really close against Nevada and Hawaii. This line really feels like it should be 9 or 10. It's 6.5, 7. Give me Colorado State tonight plus the 7. Let's go to Saturday. Alabama is a big public favorite. They're laying 3 at Missouri. A noon kick. Missouri coming off a bye. Missouri's undefeated at 5-0. Drinkwitz, their coach, is good. Their quarterback is good. Penn State may rue the day that they let Bo Probilla go for Drew Aller. I don't know. Aller's okay. He's just not what they thought he would be. Now, Missouri hasn't really beaten anybody. The win over Kansas looks pretty good. The win over South Carolina, there were some injuries. Sellers was hurt. Bama last week got beat up. That game was closer than it indicated. The public really likes Alabama. There's sharp money on Missouri. I'll take Missouri plus the 3 in that game. Let's go to Air Force at UNLV. Dan Mullen, remember, he was doing the college football recap show last year on ESPN after leaving his last job before that, which was Florida. He was pretty good on that studio show. He's now the head coach at UNLV, and in his first year, UNLV is 5-0. 5-0. Now, they have not played anybody. Wyoming, Miami of Ohio, a bad UCLA team that showed that they weren't super bad last week. Sam Houston State, Idaho State, but they're 5-0, and they're laying just 7 against the Air Force Academy. They are 1-4. They gotten into a shootout last week. Really good football game, I was told. By the way, an aerial attack, both teams last week, Navy and Air Force. Air Force is getting 7. The public is on the undefeated UNLV running Rebs laying 7. I'll take Air Force plus the 7. This is my toughest call, but I'm going to go with it because it's a system play here. Colorado's getting 3 against Iowa State. Now, I gave out last week Cincinnati laying points against Iowa State. They won outright. Iowa State's banged up, injured. They were ranked 14th in the country. They're coming off a loss, and the public just thinks they're much better than Colorado. And by the way, Matt Campbell is a better coach than Deion. He's one of the best coaches in the country. They're laying 3 in Boulder. This is just, the line's just too short. And the average bettor is laying the 3 thinking that the line's wrong. I don't love the coaching matchup. I don't like the matchup in general in analyzing it, but this is, Colorado plus 3 all day because every book in the country will need the Buffs to cover it. Let's go to K-State and TCU. I actually think TCU's a pretty good team. I also think K-State's a pretty good team. I gave them out a couple of weeks ago laying 5.5 against UCF, and they won that game easily. They lost a heartbreaker last week to Baylor. Every game they've lost has been close, going back to the game in Dublin against Iowa State. TCU's good. The quarterback's good. They've got some talent at wide receiver. They're laying, as TCU's a 4-1 team against a 2-4 team, they're laying just 1.5 in Manhattan, Little Apple, Kansas, excuse me. I'll take K-State plus the 1.5. Red River shootout in Dallas. Even with the potential return, and it looks like he's listed as probable, Mateer is the quarterback for Oklahoma. Oklahoma now just a 1-point favorite. I'll take Texas plus the 1. Here's a game that just reeks a bit. Iowa has been pretty decent. Iowa actually gave Indiana their best game, had a shot, lost 20-15. They are currently a 3-2 football team. The two losses, less than, 5 points or less to Iowa State and Indiana. They're laying just 3 against a Wisconsin team that's lost 3 in a row. Really haven't been close, even though they covered against Michigan last week. I'll take Wisconsin in Madison getting the 3 against Iowa. Let's go to Saturday night. Auburn plus 3.5 against Georgia. Auburn will be one of the biggest anti-public plays of Saturday. They struggle to score, but Georgia, on the road in this one, this is a big one for Hugh Freeze at Jordan-Hare. He's got to get a signature win. Plus 3.5, take the Tigers. And Clemson, everybody thinks, is back on pace to do something after ripping Belichick in Carolina last week. I don't think that's true. I'll take Boston College plus the 14.5 in Chestnut Hill against Clemson. Let's go to Sunday. Man, there are a lot of NFL games that fit the smell test criteria. A lot of public action on one side, a lot of sharp action on the other. I gave this team out last week, and it didn't work. It wasn't even close. The early game in London, Denver off the win over Philly. The Jets looking terrible against Dallas. People think that Denver should be laying more than a touchdown. They think that the line should be 8, 9, 10. I'll take the Jets plus the 7. Sorry. Give me the Panthers plus the 3. Everybody's on the Cowboys. Everybody's rolling with the Colts minus 7.5 at home against the Cardinals after the Cardinals lost their 3rd straight game on a walk-off field goal. So, of course, I'll take the Cardinals plus the 7.5. The Saints beat the Giants last week. They're catching 3.5 at home against the Patriots, who knocked off the Bills. Everybody in love with New England. I'll take the Saints plus 3.5. I'm giving you some bad football teams, man. Jets, Cards, Panthers, New Orleans. How about another one? The Dolphins plus 4.5 at home against the Chargers. Major public action on the Chargers. And then in the biggest game of the day, the Sunday night game, Kansas City laying 2.5 against the Red Hot Lions. I'll take the Chiefs and lay the 2.5. I'm not done yet because I'm going to give you the Monday night game out right now. I like the Falcons plus 4.5 now at home against Buffalo. Almost gave out the Bears. I might do it on Monday. There's still time before Monday. But that's it for now. A lot of plays. Starting with tonight, Colorado State plus 7, buying the half point against Fresno. Tomorrow, Missouri plus 3 at home against Bama. Air Force plus 7 at UNLV. Colorado plus 3 at home against Iowa State. K-State plus 1.5 at home against TCU. Texas in the Texas-Oklahoma Red River rivalry game. Texas plus 1. Wisconsin plus 3 at home against Iowa. Auburn plus 3.5 Saturday night at home against Georgia. And BC plus 14.5 at home against Clemson on Sunday. Jets plus 7, Cards plus 7.5, Panthers plus 3, Saints plus 3.5, Dolphins plus 4.5, Chiefs minus 2.5, and then Monday night, the Falcons plus 4.5. All of these plays, man, totally fit the anti-public, and yet you're going with the sharp action model formula. But it's worked a lot this year. 6 straight weeks. I feel like there's certainly a chance a rough, difficult week is coming. The biggest dogs in the NFL have now won outright for the last 6 games. I think it is 5 games in prime time. Last night, the Giants. Monday night, we had the Jags weren't a big dog. The Patriots on Sunday night. We've had that going here for a while. Eventually, the public starts to win a little bit. They don't lose every timeout. So tread lightly, but I feel good about the card. There are 16 plays I just gave you. They'll be posted on the team980.com later today and at team980.com on Twitter. We'll finish up. I've got some thoughts on the Terps and Nebraska tomorrow, and we'll go around the NFL a little bit when we come back. Kevin Sheehan Show, the Team 980 and the team980.com.
All right. Happy Football Friday, everybody. We will start off with Thursday Night Football. Jackson Dart and the Giants get the win against the Philadelphia Eagles in a game of man football. The human wrecking ball, Cam Scadaboo, with 3 touchdowns of his own. Jackson Dart threw for just 1. But it was too much for Philly. 34-17, the final score. Giants get home with the win. The Phillies, they fall to the Dodgers in a heartbreaker that went into extra innings. Orion Kirkering loads up the bases and has a dribbler that ends up at his feet, decides to throw it home, and the ball just ends up way too far away from JT Realmuto. Dodgers, they walk it off and advance to the NLCS. Chicago Cubs, they force a Game 5 against the Brewers. Bit of a bullpen game, but it came together for Chicago as they shut down the Brewers. Michael Busch, Kyle Tucker, and Ian Happ, all with home runs for the Cubs. They win by a score of 6-0. Later today, we have the Tigers taking on the Seattle Mariners, I believe, in a Game 5 scenario. That'll be tonight at 8 p.m. That will also be on Fox, I believe. This update is sponsored by the Team 980 YouTube page. Just open the app, type in the Team 980, hit subscribe. Kevin Sheehan is live every day from 10 to 1. You can catch Den's office throughout all the football season. Don't forget to hit the like button whenever you do decide to join us, and turn on notifications to stay up to date on all things DC sports. And that is what's trending.
The biggest plays and clutch moments.
Oh, look out! Touchdown! A miracle!
It's time to go around the
Head across
NFL.
the pond for the 3rd early game of the season. This Time the New York Jets fly overseas to technically host the Denver Broncos, who just took down the defending champs. Kev, your guy Nick Benito leads the league with 7 sacks and has a chance to become the first player since J.J. Watt to record at least 1.5 sacks in 4 consecutive games. The Jets coming to this one still searching for their first win. Feels like Aaron Glenn's first season is slipping away from him. Kickoff 9:30 a.m. Head referee Lan Clark. Broncos -7. Over/under 43.5. Can the Jets sneak out of London with a win, or do the Broncos improve to 4-2?
It does feel like the Aaron Glenn first season is slipping away from them, no doubt. Man, I mean, I just gave out the Jets plus the points in a smell test pick. So obviously, I think this is going to be a bit of a hangover game for Denver. Maybe a game. Look, they're the better football team, much better football team. And I could see Justin Fields having a disastrous day with that pass rush. They've got to try to run the football. They did it against Dallas early last week. Denver's a different animal, obviously. Justin Fields has to get better at processing and getting rid of the football, or they just have to turn him into exclusively a dual threat zone read. Let's just try to run the football and go RPO with Justin Fields in the pass game. Eventually, you got to drop back on 3rd and long. Understood. I really like this Denver team. I do. I think this just could be a hangover spot where it's kind of an ugly game, and somehow they eke it out at the end. 24 to 18 or something like that. See how I got that under the number? Yeah. I mean, Denver's legit. Denver's a legit threat to win the AFC West. They have pass rushers and defenders everywhere. I mean, you could argue right now they've got the best corner in the league in Surtain and the best pass rusher. And I mean, I wouldn't take Benito over Watt, over Garrett. I wouldn't, but God, is he unbelievable. Leads the league in sacks right now with 7, had 13.5, remember, last year. And he's that body type, that lean, lanky, long, 6'3", 240 body type that just seems to be difficult to block when he wants to get after the quarterback. This could be, by the way, a double-digit sack game for the Broncos if the Jets aren't careful. I like Denver, but not to cover.
Fair enough. All right, we go to Baltimore, where John Harbaugh and the Ravens take on Sean McVay's L.A. Rams. L.A. got a little extra rest in this spot with the mini bye, but they are a West Coast team coming east. Plus, the Ravens have won 5 of their last 6 versus the Rams. Kickoff 1 p.m. Head referee Alex Kemp. Current line, Rams -7. Over/under is 44.5. Does this trend continue, or can the Rams come away with a win this week?
I mean, I just find it amazing that the Ravens are the favorite to win the AFC North at 1-4, with the Steelers in the division at 1-3, but 3-1. I don't think they expect the Ravens to win this week. They're a big dog. And look, the Rams have the extra rest coming off last Thursday night. They need this one. The Rams are good enough to contend for the NFC Championship, but at 3-3, they fall big time behind in the division. I like the Rams here. I almost gave Baltimore out because nobody's playing the Ravens this week. Can they run the football with Cooper Rush and Derrick Henry? Cooper Rush had some decent games in Dallas. It would not be surprising to me to see the Ravens more competitive in this game and not give up 90 points and lose, legitimately like 40-10. Like, I could see this game being a 30-24 kind of a game, but I like the Rams to win and to get to 4-2. This is a good football team. LA is. Still can't believe they lost the game last Thursday night. What a game that was to the 49ers. I like the Rams, but not by the number, actually.
Fair enough. All right, Dak Prescott and the high-powered Cowboys offense take their talents down to Charlotte, going up against Bryce Young and the Panthers. Both teams coming off wins in this one. And despite being 2-3, the Panthers have gotten both their wins at home so far this season and are looking to claw above 500. Kickoff at 1 p.m. Head ref John Hussey. Cowboys -3. Already gave out the Panthers as a smell test pick. Over/under is 49.5. Can Carolina keep it clean at home, come away with the win here? Or does one of the NFL's best offenses continue to put up numbers?
This just stinks, this game, to high heaven, and feels like a game that, by the way, you pointed out, Carolina's 2-0 at home. The wins over the Falcons and the Dolphins, understood. This is a Rico Dowdle revenge game. He rushed for 206 yards last week. By the way, their rookie back from Georgia, Etienne's brother, Trevor Etienne, has shown some signs. Tet McMillan, the pick from Arizona, the wide receiver, has shown some signs. This is a better defensive team than Dallas faced last week. Yeah, Carolina can win this game, of course. It would be a testament to Dallas if they can go on the road and win 2 games that kind of felt like trappish kind of games against the Jets and the Panthers. This would be impressive to me if the Cowboys come out with like another impressive, sizable margin win against a Panthers team that's played well at home. I like Carolina, though, to at the very least lose a very close game, but I think they can win this game outright.
All right, to Lucas Oil, where Danny Dimes and his 4-1 Colts host Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. Tough loss for Arizona, as we all know, and the Colts show no signs of slowing down. In fact, the Colts rank number 2 in scoring offense in the NFL and number 3 in scoring defense. Kickoff at 1 p.m. Sean Hockley, the head ref. Colts minus 7.5, over-unders 46.5. Cardinals pull it together. Colts cruise to victory, Kev.
Yeah, so this is the scary team right now, because when you see a team that you're not expecting start off with a really good record, sometimes you can explain it away, but this team can flat out score. All right. They can really roll it up offensively. They are talented. The one loss was the game in which Mitchell, booted it going into the end zone. And then they gave up an 88-yard touchdown to lose the game in regulation. I gave out the Cardinals because nobody's going to play them after the last 3 weeks and after last week in particular. We'll see if the Cardinals have any, true bounce back resilience after the disaster last week against Tennessee. I think regardless of what happens on Sunday in Indy, I think the Colts are good. Go ahead. Next one.
All right. I think this next one's going to be a blast. We got the Seahawks heading east to take on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who seem to be rewriting what we've historically thought when we see the Jags. First time since 2007 that the Jags have won 4 of their first 5 games. Seahawks quarterback Sam Darnold is balling early this year, but these defenses are top 2 in the NFL in interceptions. Kickoff 1 p.m. Clay Martin, the head ref. Line currently Jags minus 1.5. I like the Seahawks in this one until I saw 80% of the money was on Seattle plus 1.5. Kevin, am I falling into this trap?
I almost gave out Jacksonville. The problem is there's some sharp money on Seattle as well. I don't think it's a trap. I think this is a really interesting matchup. You pointed out a lot of West Coast teams going east this week. Rams in Baltimore, Seahawks in Jacksonville, 49ers in Tampa. It's Jacksonville off the emotional Monday night win that would lead me to believe that Seattle can certainly go in there and win. This really is, to your point, this is a really interesting 1 o'clock window matchup, maybe the best one in that window to watch.
All right, heading down south where the Dolphins host Justin Herbert and a banged-up Los Angeles Chargers. The Dolphins, coming off their loss to the Panthers, have given up the highest completion percentage in the NFL, and Justin Herbert can damn sure sling it. But this is another West Coast team traveling east. Kickoff 1 p.m. Bill Vinovich going to be the head ref. Chargers minus 4.5, over-unders 43.5. Do the Chargers get back in the win column, or do the Dolphins surprise people like me?
This is going to be a tough football game for the Chargers. They are banged up. We saw that last week. Tough loss for them. It got even worse during that game because they lost Omarion Hampton. He's on injured reserve, and they're down to basically their 3rd and 4th string running backs if you go back to just a few weeks ago. I think this is going to be a tough game. The Chargers maybe eke it out with a field goal at the gun, something like that. But imagine that 3-0 start against all AFC West teams if it disappears. We're not going to have time to get through the rest of these.
We're about to go through a really gross stretch of games here, too.
Yeah, but let me just mention, I think 49ers Bucks in that 4:25 window, followed by Lions Chiefs. I'm glad Washington doesn't play on Sunday, and we can wait until Monday night and just sit back and watch the NFL on Sunday. This is big spot for the Chiefs Sunday night, really big spot. And if the 49ers go on the road and win like they did last week in LA against a Tampa team coming off the win, Kyle Shanahan deserves unbelievable kudos because he's doing it with his backup, who really might be better than the starter. Maryland plays Nebraska tomorrow. I hope last week's disappointment doesn't really subdue the people that were starting to get excited about it like me. I think they got a shot. It's a better team, actually, in many ways that they're facing tomorrow than Washington, in a better situation, because Washington was coming in, off that physical, worn down loss to Ohio State, man. Ohio State's defense is rough. Tough spot for the Terps. If they can pull it out, we can go have ourselves a season. A loss, and people are going to be bailing pretty quickly. Good luck, Locks and company. I'll be out there to watch Maryland and Nebraska tomorrow in College Park. I like the Terps a little bit, but not a lot in this one after last week. I think they're really good on defense, though. Hey, Window Nation's got a great deal going on right now. Buy 2, get 2 free, pay nothing for 2 years. All right, so you're basically paying half price for the windows, and they're offering no down payment, no monthly payments, and no interest for 2 years. End your window problems. Replace those old windows that are costing you a lot of money on your heating bills with brand new windows. Trust Window Nation. They offer a lifetime warranty, and they've got over 45,000 five-star reviews, ranked highest on Forbes' list of best window installation companies in America. Get started with a free estimate before October 31st to save big on your replacement windows. Schedule that fast free estimate now with my friends and the pros at Window Nation. 866-90-NATION, windownation.com. Back on Monday, game day. Chris Russell next.